hush fell over Gotham, soft as a sigh, while a single streetlight flickered like it had a story to tell. Somewhere in the shadows, a small, strange pulse of light danced across a window, unnoticed but patient. We want you to know that you are deeply cared for, that your presence here matters, and that you deserve quiet moments like this. Before we begin the story, tell us where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, rest your hands, breathe slowly, and if you have a warm drink nearby, let it sit beside you. Tonight, we step softly into a city where whispers and stars mingle, where secrets move like gentle lullabies. Let us walk together, and let the story wrap around you like a quiet blanket. A hush had fallen over Wayne Manor that night, soft as the breath of the city itself. Outside, the wind whispered through the tall oaks that lined the estate, curling around the windows in slow, twisting spirals. Inside, the halls were quiet, save for the occasional tick of an unseen clock and the faint rustle of a curtain, stirred by some gentle current of air. It was the kind of night that felt alive but patient, where every shadow seemed to have its own story, waiting for someone to notice. Young Bruce lay in his bed, cocooned beneath heavy blankets that smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, though he could see nothing of importance. Or so he thought, for in the corner of the room, a faint shimmer of moonlight lingered longer than it ought to have, not rushing across the floor like the usual silver streaks. It paused, almost expectant, as though the night itself was holding its breath. We want you to know, right here, that you are deeply cared for, that your presence in this quiet hour matters more than the world might ever tell you. Before we begin the story, tell us where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, let your hands rest, and, if you have a warm drink nearby, let it sit beside you. Tonight, we step softly into a city of shadows and stars, where mysteries hum like lullabies. Let us walk together, and let the story wrap around you like a gentle blanket. Bruce's small chest rose and fell, slowly, as he listened to the soft creaks and sighs of the old manor. Something about the shimmer in the corner tugged at him, a curious warmth in his chest that he couldn't quite name. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed, bare feet pressing into the soft carpet, and padded toward the window. The moonlight seemed to breathe, shifting with a subtle rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He reached out a small hand, fingertips brushing against the cold pane, and for a moment, he imagined the light might bend to touch him back. The house seemed to recognize his presence, or perhaps it was only Bruce who noticed the quiet life in the shadows. The walls had heard his laughter and his worries, had held the echoes of his questions and doubts. Tonight, though, they felt different, like the house itself had paused to watch, to wait for something that only the boy could see. He stepped closer to the shimmer, careful not to disturb the stillness. The air smelled faintly of rain that had passed earlier, leaving a trace of damp earth and clean stone. It was comforting, familiar in a way that felt almost like a lullaby sung in a language he didn't yet understand. The shimmer moved ever so slightly, a gentle pulse that seemed alive. Bruce tilted his head, eyes wide in wonder, and whispered, almost to himself, "Hello?" The word hung in the air, fragile and soft. No reply came, and yet it didn't feel lonely. The light didn't retreat. It waited patiently, as if it had known he would come. Bruce knelt by the window then, pressing his forehead against the cool glass, staring at the vast city below. Gotham stretched out like a dark quilt, patches of gold light scattered here and there, each one a quiet story unfolding somewhere in the night. Somewhere, a clock tolled, far away, and the sound seemed to resonate in his chest. He felt the pulse of the city as much as he felt the pulse of the moonlight in the corner. The shimmer grew slightly brighter for a moment, and Bruce thought he could see shapes in its soft, shifting shadows that suggested movement, but no form that could be named. He did not feel fear. Instead, he felt a curious calm, a gentle recognition of something larger than himself, something quietly patient and enduring. Alfred, always attuned to these nights, entered silently. A soft footfall that barely stirred the air. Still awake, Master Bruce. His voice was warm, low, like the hum of a well-tuned piano, and it wrapped around the boy like a comforting shawl. Bruce turned his head slightly, eyes still fixed on the shimmer. I think the moonlight is waiting for me, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Alfred approached, crouching so that his eyes were level with Bruce's. He didn't need to see the shimmer to understand. Perhaps it is, he said gently. Or perhaps it is simply waiting for you to notice it, as it always waits for those who look closely enough. Bruce felt a small smile tug at the corners of his mouth. I think it wants to tell me something, he murmured. But I don't know what. Alfred nodded, letting the silence stretch between them, the quiet heavy with understanding rather than explanation. Sometimes, Alfred thought, the most important stories were not told in words. Sometimes, the stories whispered in light and shadow, and the hearts that listened learned more than those who demanded answers. The shimmer flickered again. Not urgently, not wildly, but in a soft rhythm, like a gentle heartbeat. Bruce sat cross-legged on the carpet, hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the window. He felt the pulse of the night seep into him, filling his chest with a calm awareness he could not name. Outside, a solitary star blinked briefly, then vanished behind a drifting cloud. Bruce whispered a quiet thank you, though to whom or what he could not say. Alfred stood a few steps back, hands folded, watching the boy and the quiet miracle of his wonder. Time passed in soft waves. The wind sighed, the shadows shifted, and the shimmer remained, patient and constant. Bruce imagined what it would be like to follow the light, to drift across the city like it did, gentle and unseen. He imagined the rooftops and alleyways, the silent streets that held stories, just waiting to be noticed. He imagined being part of the city's quiet heartbeat, a pulse that mattered even if it went unseen by others. Eventually, his eyelids grew heavy, and he leaned back against the windowsill. The shimmer seemed to settle, curling into a soft glow that felt like a gentle promise rather than a secret. Alfred stepped closer, placing a hand on Bruce's shoulder. Sleep now, Master Bruce, he murmured. The night will be here when you wake. In the moonlight, it will always wait for you. Bruce let out a long, slow breath, feeling the calm seep into every part of him. His fingers brushed the window one last time before he crawled back into bed. The shimmer lingered, soft and steady, until his eyes finally closed. Somewhere in the quiet, the city exhaled, and the night hummed a lullaby for those patient enough to hear. He dreamed then not of monsters or shadows, not of danger or loss, but of quiet light and slow, stretching time. He dreamed of the pulse of the city, the whisper of leaves, the gentle presence of someone who cared without demanding, someone who simply watched and waited. And in that dream, Bruce felt the first stirrings of something enduring, a quiet curiosity, a tender courage, and a heart attuned to the smallest wonders of the night. When morning would come, the shimmer would vanish, leaving only a memory of its patience, a trace of its soft insistence. But tonight, it waited, and Bruce listened. And somewhere, deep in the house, Alfred smiled softly, knowing that the boy had seen the first light of something that would grow slowly, patiently, across a lifetime. And now, as you listen, let yourself feel the hush of the manor, the soft shimmer of something unseen, the quiet pulse of the city. Let it settle into you, wrap around you, and carry you gently toward sleep. The world can wait a little while. Tonight, you are here, you are cared for, and you are part of something quietly miraculous. The halls of Wayne Manor carried a quiet weight that morning, the kind that only houses that have lived for centuries seem to know. Sunlight filtered in softly, brushing against the polished floors and gilded frames of ancestors long gone. Yet, despite the brightness, there remained shadows soft, slow-moving shadows that lingered in corners, in archways, and behind the tall curtains. They were not ominous. They were patient, observing, as if the house itself remembered everything it had seen. From laughter to quiet tears, Bruce moved carefully through these halls, small feet padding across the carpet, attentive to every creak and sigh of the floorboards. The shimmer from last night lingered in his memory, a soft pulse behind his eyes. He wondered if it was still there somewhere, hiding in the corners, waiting for him to notice it again. But even if it wasn't, he felt that same gentle curiosity in his chest, the quiet kind that made him want to explore, to understand, to notice everything he had not yet seen. As he wandered, he noticed the tiniest details. A picture frame slightly askew, the faint scent of roses from a vase long past its bloom, a pattern of light that danced slowly across the marble floor. It was the kind of noticing that made the world feel alive, as though even the smallest object had its own story to tell. Bruce knelt to touch the carved edges of the banister, fingertips brushing over grooves worn smooth by decades of hands, and imagined the people who had once held it, just as he did. There was a quiet warmth in these imaginings, a sense that life, in all its small gestures, was threaded together by invisible threads of care and attention. Alfred appeared silently, as he often did, a shadow within shadows, calm and steady. "You've been awake early again," he said, his voice low and soft, blending into the ambient quiet of the manor. There was no reproach, only observation. Bruce nodded, not needing to explain why he wandered the halls so often, why he lingered in corners and doorways. Alfred understood, without words, that the boy was learning to see the world differently, not merely to move through it, but to notice the hidden motions, the subtle movements of life around him. Bruce paused near a tall window overlooking the gardens. The dew glimmered on the grass, catching sunlight like a million tiny stars fallen to earth. He leaned against the frame, inhaling the crisp morning air that carried the scent of earth and blossoms. Somewhere far below, a bird stirred, and its small song echoed faintly up to him. He imagined it was calling just for him, a secret companion in a morning made of soft light and quiet sounds. Alfred stood behind him, still as the shadows, letting him savor the moment without interruption. A sudden movement caught Bruce's eye, a flicker of motion in the hallway behind him. He turned slowly, and though he saw nothing, he felt a tiny thrill of curiosity, a whisper of the same wonder that had held him awake last night. The house was full of such moments, and he had learned that the shadows were not empty. They carried stories, small histories, and lessons, if only one was willing to see them. Bruce tiptoed toward the place where the motion had seemed to come from, listening to the quiet heartbeat of the house beneath his feet. Every step revealed new details, a subtle pattern of dust on a windowsill, the faint echo of a creaking hinge, the soft hum of air flowing through a vent. Bruce began to understand that attention itself was a kind of magic. The house seemed to respond to his care, the shadows stretching and shifting gently, almost as if they were acknowledging his presence. There was no rush, no need for urgency. Each sound, each movement, was a small piece of a larger symphony, and he was learning to hear it all. At the end of a long hallway, Bruce found himself before a heavy, carved door he had never noticed before. It was slightly ajar, a thin line of shadow spilling onto the floor. His hand hovered over the handle, a moment of hesitation passing through him. Then he pushed gently, and the door swung open with a soft creak. Inside was a small study, dusty but warm with sunlight. Books lined the shelves, their spines worn and faded. The air smelled of parchment and time. Bruce stepped inside, knees bending slightly as he took in the space, feeling the calm settle over him like a soft blanket. He wandered among the shelves, fingertips brushing over the books, pausing to notice titles that seemed strange and wonderful. Stories about faraway lands, tales of quiet heroes, even old journals with words written long ago by people he would never meet. And yet, each felt intimate. as though the act of noticing them brought him closer to something universal, something gentle and enduring. He ran his hand along a particularly worn spine, imagining the countless fingers that had touched it before him. The thought filled him with a strange, quiet happiness, a recognition that life was threaded together by small, unnoticed acts. Alfred watched from the doorway, silent and steady. He did not intrude, did not speak, allowing Bruce to explore this quiet corner of the manor on his own. He knew these moments were essential, these small awakenings of attention and care. Bruce's curiosity was not mere play. It was forming the foundation of a sensitivity that would one day guide him, quietly and patiently, through the world. For now, it was enough to see him here, absorbing the subtle rhythms of the house, listening to shadows and footsteps with open eyes and an open heart. Time seemed to slow as Bruce moved through the study. A faint breeze stirred the pages of an open book, and he bent to see a line of writing he could almost understand but not quite. It didn't matter that the meaning was unclear. The feeling of discovery, the gentle wonder, was enough. He imagined the hand that had written those words, the thoughts and hopes behind them, and he realized that even small gestures, turning a page, leaving a note, noticing a shadow or threads connecting one life to another across time. The morning passed in a series of quiet moments. Bruce moved from the study to the hall, then to the grand staircase, each step deliberate, each glance attentive. He discovered a loose floorboard that held the faintest echo of creaks from the past, a forgotten nook where sunlight pooled in a lazy rectangle, a set of footprints long since faded into memory. Each shadow he encountered felt like a companion, each sound a gentle conversation. He began to understand that the world was far larger and softer than he had imagined, full of unseen wonders that could be found if one simply paid attention. By midday, Bruce returned to the great hall, small and calm, carrying with him the quiet joy of having wandered and noticed. He sat near the fireplace, watching the flames flicker gently, and reflected on the soft rhythm of the manor. It was a place of patience and quiet teaching, a home that spoke without words, revealing its wisdom through shadows and footsteps, through creaks and whispers. Alfred approached, carrying a tray with a simple breakfast. "It seems you've made the rounds," he said, a small smile playing at his lips. Bruce nodded, eyes still thoughtful. "I think the house is trying to tell me something," he said softly. "Something I don't understand yet, but it feels important." Alfred placed the tray before him, letting him eat in silence. He knew the boy's words were enough. No explanation was needed. Sometimes, the stories we notice in shadows and footsteps are more valuable than any words anyone could offer. As Bruce ate, the light shifted slowly through the hall, falling in golden patterns across the carpet. He noticed the warmth it carried, the way it highlighted even the smallest details, the grain of the wood, the gentle dust motes dancing in the air. He realized that the world, even in quiet and forgotten corners, was filled with stories that could be discovered, loved, and remembered. The shadows had their own music, the footsteps their own rhythm, and he had learned, in this soft morning, to listen with his heart as well as his eyes. And when he finally pushed back from the table, stretching his small frame and yawning quietly, Bruce carried with him a sense of calm wonder. The mansion was not merely a house. It was a living story, full of patient mysteries and gentle lessons. And he, in his own quiet way, was beginning to understand how to walk among them, noticing without needing to act, listening without needing answers, loving without needing recognition. The day continued softly, a gentle rhythm of light and shadow, of small movements and quiet observations. Bruce wandered, explored, paused, and watched, always attentive to the life that existed in every corner of his home. And as night approached again, he knew he would remember this morning, not for excitement or drama, but for the delicate music of shadows and footsteps, for the quiet lessons whispered by the walls themselves, and for the warmth of being truly seen, even in silence. The afternoon sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Wayne Manor, brushing the polished floors with gentle warmth. Shadows stretched across the halls, soft and patient, curling along the edges of furniture and doorways. Bruce moved quietly, aware of the silence as though it were a living thing, and felt an almost tangible sense of protection wrapping around him. It was not the protection of walls or locks, but something subtler, steady presence that whispered calm and safety, reminding him that even in the vastness of the house, he was not alone. Alfred followed at a distance, as always, observing without interrupting, letting Bruce explore and notice the world on his own terms. But every now and then, he offered a quiet word or a gentle smile, grounding the boy in a sense of care that did not need explanation. "You seem more at ease today," Alfred said softly, his voice blending into the rhythm of the house. Bruce glanced up at him, eyes bright, yet contemplative. "I think the house feels different when you're around," he murmured. Alfred's lips curved in a small, understanding smile, and he simply nodded. No words were necessary. The sentiment was mutual, deep and unspoken. Bruce wandered toward the study, pausing at the doorway to watch the sunlight scatter across the bookshelves. Dust motes danced lazily in the golden beams, tiny particles of memory suspended in the air. He knelt to examine a shelf, fingers tracing the spines of books, long untouched, feeling a connection to the hands that had turned their pages before him. Each movement was quiet, deliberate, a small act of reverence for the lives and stories that had preceded him. Alfred approached, placing a tray of tea and biscuits on a nearby table, the soft clink of porcelain barely disturbing the silence. "You have a careful way of moving through the house," Alfred said gently, seating himself across from Bruce. "It is as though you listen to it, rather than simply walk through it." Bruce tilted his head, considering the words. "I think the house has a lot to say," he replied. "I just have to be patient enough to hear it." Alfred nodded again, eyes warm with quiet approval. In that moment, the role of the guardian became clearer, not someone who dictated or led, but someone who created space for curiosity, wonder, and care to grow. The sun shifted slowly across the room, changing the patterns of light and shadow on the floor. Bruce stood and moved toward a corner where a small, carved armchair sat beside a tall lamp. He sank into it, letting the cushions mold gently to his frame, and gazed around the room, noticing the little things he had overlooked before. The gentle curve of a picture frame, the faded edge of a rug, the faint smell of leather and old paper. These were not grand details, but they mattered, and in noticing them, he felt a quiet sense of presence, an understanding that even small attentions could become acts of love. Alfred sat nearby, watching the boy with a calm patience that was almost like the rhythm of the house itself. He had always understood the importance of presence, the gentle act of simply being there, of listening without expectation, of guiding without imposing. It was a lesson Bruce absorbed slowly, like a seed taking root in soft, fertile soil. He felt safe here, in this careful attention, and in that safety, he began to notice his own rhythms, his own responses to the quiet world around him. A small breeze stirred the curtains, carrying with it the faint scent of flowers from the garden outside. Bruce closed his eyes briefly, inhaling deeply, and felt the warmth of the sun on his face. "It's strange," he said softly. "I feel like I could stay here forever, and still find something new to notice." Alfred smiled, understanding the depth of that thought. "The house always has something new to reveal," he said. "Sometimes, we just have to be quiet enough to see it." Bruce opened his eyes and noticed a small, faded photograph on a nearby desk. It showed a younger Alfred, standing beside a man and a woman he did not recognize. There was a softness to the image, a sense of care and connection that transcended words. Bruce picked it up gently, tracing the edges with his fingers. "Who are they?" he asked. Alfred's gaze softened, but he did not rush to answer. Instead, he allowed Bruce to consider the photograph in his own way, understanding that sometimes the lessons of history were best discovered quietly, through observation and reflection. The afternoon moved slowly, each moment stretching like a lazy ribbon of light. Bruce wandered again, exploring the study and its adjoining rooms, and noticed details he had missed before: the subtle curve of a desk drawer, the faint imprint of a hand on a chair, the way light spilled across a stack of papers in a pattern that seemed almost deliberate. He realized that the house itself was alive, not in the sense of motion, but in the way it carried memory, attention, and care. And Alfred, quietly present, was a part of that life, a constant thread of warmth and guidance. At one point, Bruce paused by a window that overlooked the sprawling gardens. He pressed his forehead to the glass, feeling the coolness against his skin, and let his mind wander. Somewhere beyond the flowers and the trees, the city of Gotham pulsed quietly, unaware of the boy and the man observing it from afar. But Bruce did not feel small or insignificant. Instead, he felt connected to the house, to Alfred, to the patterns of life and shadow that existed around him. In that quiet connection, he discovered a small but profound joy. Alfred joined him at the window, placing a hand lightly on Bruce's shoulder. "You notice so much, Master Bruce," he said softly. "Sometimes, I wonder if you see the world differently than the rest of us." Bruce smiled faintly. "I think I just take the time to look," he replied. Alfred nodded, letting the words settle between them. There was no need for further discussion. Presence, observation, and patience were lessons best absorbed slowly, quietly, and without expectation. The shadows in the room lengthened as the day drew toward evening. Light faded gradually, casting the study in soft shades of gray and gold. Bruce returned to his chair, settling into it as if it were a familiar friend. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of the house, the quiet guidance of Alfred, and the gentle pulse of life that existed in even the smallest details. It was a rhythm he was learning to follow, a cadence that promised safety, curiosity, and a sense of belonging. Even as he rested, Bruce noticed subtle shifts in the room, the way a shadow moved across the floor, the faint creak of a door far away, the way the light caught the edges of a book in a corner. Each observation was small, almost imperceptible, yet it carried meaning. The world, he realized, was full of these tiny, quiet moments of beauty, connection, and understanding that often went unnoticed by those who rushed through life. And as evening deepened, the house seemed to breathe around him. Shadows stretched, sunlight faded completely, and the quiet became a living companion. Alfred prepared a small tea, placing it beside Bruce without breaking the gentle rhythm of the room. They shared the warmth in silence, each sip carrying a sense of care that went beyond words. It was in these moments, Bruce realized, that guardianship was truly felt not in directives or instruction, but in presence, patience, and gentle guidance. The night crept closer, painting the sky beyond the window with soft shades of indigo and silver. Bruce leaned back in his chair, letting the calm of the day settle into him, feeling the steady, quiet heartbeat of the house, the warmth of Alfred's presence, and the subtle pulse of life in every shadow and every creak. He understood now that safety and guidance were not loud or demanding. They were quiet, steady, and patient, like the light that waits in the corner of a room, or the shadow that follows you gently as you move. And when Bruce finally rose and made his way to his room, he felt a sense of completion, a quiet satisfaction in having noticed, explored, and absorbed. The gentle guardian, Alfred, followed him just far enough to watch without intruding, letting the boy carry the lessons of the day within him. The house exhaled softly, wrapping Bruce in the quiet magic of its presence, as though it too understood the importance of this gentle awakening. Bruce lay down that night, the shadows of the house soft and patient around him. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of Alfred's guidance, the rhythm of life and observation, and the gentle pulse of the world that whispered through every corner. And as he drifted toward sleep, he knew that even in the vastness of the house, in the stillness of the night, he was watched over, cared for, and quietly nurtured. The lessons of the day lingered in his chest: presence, patience, quiet care. And somewhere beyond the walls, in the soft murmur of shadows and footsteps, Bruce felt the first stirrings of the understanding that would grow slowly, patiently, across a lifetime. The night had settled over Wayne Manor like a soft, dark velvet curtain, wrapping the house in quiet. Bruce lay in his bed, listening to the gentle sigh of the wind through the trees and the faint creak of the old floorboards that stretched far below. He had noticed things tonight: subtle sounds, slight shifts in the air, the soft pulse of shadows along the walls, and he felt a new awareness settling into him, delicate and insistent. It was as though the house itself whispered to him, and he had begun to understand, just barely, how to listen. We want you to know, right here, that you are seen, that your attention to the world quiet, patient, and gentle. Before we continue, take a moment to breathe deeply, feel the rhythm of your own heartbeat, soft and steady, and imagine it mingling with the calm pulse of a quiet, peaceful night. The world can wait a little while. Right now, it is only you, this story, and the gentle unfolding of something small and beautiful. Bruce swung his legs over the edge of the bed, feet touching the soft carpet. The shimmer he had noticed days before, soft, patient, and almost alive, seemed to linger in his memory, as though it were waiting to greet him again. He padded quietly toward the window, careful not to disturb the deep hush of the night. Outside, the moon floated low over Gotham, its light pale and gentle, illuminating the streets like spilled silver. Bruce leaned against the windowsill, eyes scanning the quiet city, noticing things others might not: the soft flicker of a distant streetlight, the way shadows pooled in empty alleyways, the slow rhythm of leaves moving against one another. He realized something that night. In a whisper of understanding, noticing, truly noticing, was a kind of power. Not the kind that commanded or dominated, but a subtle power, quiet, yet enduring. The ability to sense the small rhythms of the world, to understand the moods of those around him, to see the invisible threads that connected moments and people. These were gifts, delicate but strong, that he had begun to feel stirring within him. Alfred appeared, as he often did, quietly, without sound, a steady presence that brought warmth and reassurance. "Still awake, Master Bruce?" he asked softly. There was no surprise in his tone, no impatience, only calm, observant care. Bruce nodded, fingers tracing the edge of the windowsill. I think I can feel things differently now," he whispered. "Not like anyone else, but more than usual, like the world is speaking, and I can hear it if I try." Alfred nodded, eyes soft and understanding. "Perhaps you are discovering your own quiet strengths," he said, "the sort that don't shout, but rather linger, subtle and true." Bruce moved away from the window and wandered the hallway, noticing the way the shadows stretched and shifted as he passed. He realized he could sense the presence of objects, of memories, almost like a faint vibration that lingered long after someone had touched them. A chair tilted slightly in the corner, a picture frame hanging just a touch crooked, the faint hum of the air through a ventole. These small signs carried meaning. He did not yet know what to call it, but he felt it deep in his chest, a kind of attentiveness that could make the invisible visible. The house seemed to respond to him, stretching and shifting around his awareness. The shadows lengthened gently, pooling in ways that felt deliberate. The floorboards creaked, as if echoing his movements, soft murmurs of encouragement rather than warning. Bruce felt a thrill, but not one of fear or excitement. It was quiet, a steady warmth that seemed to rise from his chest and settle into his limbs. This subtle power, the ability to perceive, to notice, To connect was growing quietly within him, like a tiny flame awaiting gentle breath to kindle it further. He stopped at the top of the grand staircase, peering down at the dim hall below. The light of a single candle flickered in the distance, casting elongated shadows along the walls. He could sense the weight of the space, the quiet life it carried in the stillness, and he realized that he could almost feel the emotions that had passed through it, the soft laughter of someone long gone, a sigh of worry left behind, the gentle hush of someone caring for another. Each sensation was faint, like a whisper carried on the wind. But he could sense it all, deeply and subtly. Alfred appeared again, placing a small hand on Bruce's shoulder. "It is a gift to feel so much, Master Bruce," he said softly. "But it is also a responsibility. You will notice more than others, and sometimes it may weigh on you. But it can also guide you toward gentleness, understanding, and care. That is the quiet strength you have begun to awaken." Bruce nodded, absorbing the words in silence. He did not yet fully understand the weight of this subtle gift, but he felt its presence and the slow, patient growth it promised. Later, Bruce wandered to the study, where the faint scent of old books and polished wood filled the air. He ran his fingers along the spines of dusty tomes, sensing faint traces of the people who had once read them. Each touch carried a resonance, a subtle echo of thought and emotion, almost like a gentle fingerprint left behind in memory. He realized he could feel more than the physical world. He could sense a faint pulse in things that had once been cared for, loved, or simply noticed. And that, he thought, might be the first hint of a kind of power he could call his own. The night deepened, and Bruce's footsteps carried him through the halls of the manor, careful and deliberate. He noticed the slight tilt of a vase, the pattern of dust on a window ledge, the faint indentation where a chair had been moved. Each observation was like a soft conversation with the past, a dialogue that required patience, attention, and quiet care. He felt a connection to these small acts and the people who had once performed them. In sensing their presence, he felt a part of something larger, subtle and enduring, a quiet, gentle world waiting to be acknowledged. He paused in front of a large mirror, its surface reflecting both the room and himself. Bruce stared at his own reflection, noticing not just his small frame or the shadows under his eyes, but the careful attention in his gaze, the curiosity that seemed to hum beneath his skin. He could feel the faint echo of his own heartbeat, slow and steady, and in that rhythm he sensed a quiet energy, a small awareness that stretched beyond himself into the spaces around him. The world was alive, and he could feel it in ways no one else seemed to notice. The house seemed to exhale with him, settling into a calm rhythm of light, shadow, and soft murmurs. Alfred moved nearby, carrying a candle, letting the boy continue his exploration without interruption. "These small powers," he said gently, "are the kind that guide you quietly. They will teach you patience, empathy, and the ability to see what others may miss. They are subtle, but in their subtlety lies their strength." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of it settle within him. It was not a strength of confrontation or noise, but of observation, care, and the quiet understanding of life as it moved around him as the night wore on. Bruce found a small nook beneath a window, where moonlight pooled in a soft, silver rectangle. He settled there, knees drawn to his chest, and let his awareness extend outward. He could sense the hum of the house, the faint echo of memories, the whisper of wind through the trees. Each sensation was soft, fleeting, and yet meaningful. He realized that these small powers, the ability to notice, to feel, to perceive, were already shaping him, teaching him the rhythms of the world and of himself. Alfred seated himself quietly nearby, observing without interruption. "It is a rare gift," he murmured, "to sense so deeply. You will need to honor it, to use it gently, and to carry it with care. But it will guide you, even when you cannot yet name the lessons it brings." Bruce closed his eyes, letting the soft light and quiet murmurs of the night settle into him. He could feel the small powers moving beneath his skin, patient and subtle, and he imagined the future ways in which they might grow, quietly and insistently, shaping the person he would become. And as Bruce finally drifted toward sleep, the house wrapped around him like a protective cocoon. Shadows whispered softly, moonlight lingered patiently, and Alfred's steady presence hummed in the background like a quiet lullaby. The small powers he had begun to awaken were not loud or commanding, but they were steady, enduring, and filled with gentle promise. Tonight, he would dream not of grandeur or adventure, but of awareness, connection, and the delicate beauty of noticing. And somewhere, beyond the walls of the manor, the city of Gotham breathed quietly, unaware of the boy who was learning to feel more than most could see. But Bruce did not need their notice. He had already begun to sense the subtle currents of life, the whispers of small powers that would guide him patiently and quietly across the nights and days to come. The first drops of rain tapped softly against the tall windows of Wayne Manor, slow and patient, each one carrying a quiet rhythm that seemed almost musical. Bruce lay in his bed, listening to the gentle percussion as it fell on the roof and the stone terraces outside. There was no urgency in the sound, only the patient cadence of water meeting earth. A lullaby the world had been singing for centuries. He closed his eyes and let the rain fill him, a soft rhythm he could almost feel in his chest, mingling with the quiet pulse of the house. We want you to know that you are safe, that these small, simple moments of attention and care are as important as anything else in the world. Before we continue, take a slow, deep breath. Let it move through you like a gentle stream, washing away any restlessness, carrying calm to every corner of your mind. Tonight, the story moves softly, as gentle as raindrops falling on leaves, and we walk together in that quiet rhythm. Bruce swung his legs over the edge of the bed, feet touching the carpet lightly, careful not to disturb the deep hush of the room. Alfred had lit a small lamp, its glow soft and golden, blending with the gray shimmer of the rainy sky outside. The light was comforting, warm in contrast to the cool moisture in the air. A reminder that care often arrived in subtle forms rather than grand gestures. Bruce moved to the window, pressing his forehead gently against the glass. The rain blurred the world beyond, turning the garden and the distant city into a soft watercolor painting. He listened closely, noticing the different tones, the tiny pitter of drops on the roof, the slower, heavier splash on the stone terraces, the whisper of water sliding down the leaves of the oak trees. Each sound was unique, each one a small note in a quiet symphony of life. Bruce realized that paying attention could transform even ordinary sounds into something rich and moving. Each drop of rain seemed to hold a story, a hint of memory, a faint trace of the lives that moved beneath it. Alfred joined him quietly, standing a few steps behind, his presence steady and unobtrusive. "The rain always speaks in its own way," he said softly, voice blending into the rhythm of the falling water. "It has a language of patience and reflection. Some hear it as noise. Others, like you, can hear it as a story." Bruce nodded, feeling a gentle thrill of understanding. He was beginning to notice that the world carried messages, not always visible, not always tangible, but always present for those patient enough to listen. The boy watched the rain pool on the garden paths, meandering slowly like silver threads weaving through the grass. He imagined that each drop carried a fragment of someone's thought, a whisper of someone's care, or a memory long past. And though he did not fully understand how, he felt that noticing these things, honoring them with his attention, was a kind of quiet power. It was subtle, delicate, and deeply personal, and it was his. Bruce moved from the window to the hallway, letting the rain's rhythm accompany him. The house seemed to echo it, the gentle creaks of floorboards and the soft hum of air through vents blending seamlessly with the sound outside. Every step he took was deliberate, measured, careful not just to avoid noise, but to feel the house and the rain as a single living presence. Each footfall carried a sense of awareness that extended beyond the physical, a recognition of the delicate interplay between sound, space, and perception. He paused at a tall mirror in the hallway, watching the raindrops streak across the glass in slow rivulets. His own reflection was faint, almost ghost-like, merging with the blurred shapes of the garden beyond. Bruce tilted his head and noticed something subtle in awareness within himself that had grown stronger in the last few days. He could sense the moods of the house, the quiet movements of shadows, the faint trace of emotions left behind by those who had passed through these halls. This, he thought, was a small power. Alfred approached silently, placing a warm hand briefly on Bruce's shoulder. "Do you notice it?" he asked. Bruce nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "I can feel things, even things that aren't here anymore, and I think it matters." Alfred's eyes were gentle, approving. "It matters very much," he said. "These gifts are not loud or dramatic, but they shape you. They teach you patience, empathy, and a kind of quiet courage that will carry you far." The boy wandered into the study, where the faint smell of books and polished wood mingled with the cool freshness of the rain. He ran his fingers along the spines of tomes, sensing the tiny traces of past readers, their curiosity, their care, their attention. Each touch was a dialogue across time, subtle and unspoken. Bruce realized that noticing these small echoes, honoring them quietly, was an act of connection. The rain outside continued to fall steadily, a soft accompaniment to his thoughts. Bruce discovered a small, forgotten journal on a shelf. Its pages were yellowed, edges frayed. He opened it carefully, sensing the hand that had written the words long ago. He could almost feel the rhythm of the writer's thoughts, the slow unfolding of small reflections and quiet joys. Alfred watched from the doorway, giving space while remaining near, offering a silent encouragement that was stronger than any spoken word. The boy read a few lines aloud, the sound of his voice blending with the patter of the rain, a lullaby for both past and present. As the evening deepened, the rain intensified slightly, falling in long, slow streams along the windows. Bruce moved to a window seat, curling up with the journal and letting the soft light of the lamp illuminate the pages. He felt a strange sense of calm and wonder, as if the rain had washed away the clutter of thought and opened space for quiet reflection. Every drop seemed to carry the world's subtle secrets, the ones that only those who were patient enough could hear. And Bruce was patient. Alfred settled beside him, offering a warm hand to hold, a gesture of care that needed no words. Bruce leaned into the touch, feeling the steady presence and the quiet reassurance that came with it. "Do you think," he began softly, "that noticing these small things, shadows, whispers, raindrops can really change someone?" Alfred smiled gently. "Change them, yes, but more than that, teaches them to see, to feel, and to act with quiet awareness. That is a power of its own, one that grows steadily and subtly." Bruce closed the journal and gazed out at the rain. The city beyond the manor seemed softened, washed in silver and gray, each light a tiny heartbeat against the night. He felt a connection to the world, to the lives moving unseen beneath the rain, to the quiet pulse of existence that seemed to stretch infinitely beyond him. It was a humbling, comforting realization that even the smallest attentions, the faintest whispers, could matter profoundly in a world often too busy to notice. The night deepened further, and Bruce finally lay back against the window seat, letting the rain's rhythm lull him toward sleep. He felt the gentle weight of the house, the steady warmth of Alfred nearby, and the quiet pulse of the world moving around him. Each drop of rain was a note in the night's soft lullaby, each shadow a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of life. Bruce closed his eyes fully, breathing slowly, feeling his small powers, the awareness, empathy, and attention he had begun to cultivate settle gently into his chest. And as he drifted into sleep, The rain continued to fall, each drop a soft exhale of the world, a quiet hum that carried him further into dreams of calm wonder, gentle curiosity, and the patient unfolding of quiet strength. Somewhere in the house, Alfred watched for a moment, then let the boy rest, knowing that the night, like the rain, had already begun its own gentle teaching. The whispers of small powers, the quiet observation of life, the careful attention to the unnoticed, all of it would grow in time, carrying Bruce slowly and steadily toward the person he was meant to become. And tonight, as raindrops drummed softly against the windows, and the house held him tenderly in its shadows, he understood that the world, patient and waiting, would always speak to those willing to listen. The morning light in Wayne Manor had a softness that seemed to linger longer than usual, spilling across the walls and furniture in pale gold ribbons. Bruce sat by the tall mirror in the corner of his room, watching his reflection carefully. He studied the way shadows stretched across his small face, the quiet lines of thought beginning to form beneath his young eyes. The mirror was more than glass. It was a friend, a patient companion that reflected not only the surface, but the currents moving quietly inside him. Before we begin, take a slow, gentle breath. Feel the quiet space around you, the soft rhythm of your heartbeat, and imagine it moving in sync with the unfolding story. This is a story meant to be savored slowly, to lull you into reflection, and to leave a soft sense of wonder in your mind as your body begins to relax. You are safe, you are cared for, and you are present in this gentle moment. Bruce noticed the smallest details, how the light caught the edge of a book on his desk, how a tiny dust motes floated in the sunlight like golden stars. In the quiet, he could almost hear his own thoughts echo back at him from the glass. He tilted his head and whispered softly to himself, "I wonder who I am becoming." The words were not urgent, nor was there any expectation to answer them. They simply floated in the room, as natural and unhurried as the slow stretch of morning shadows. Alfred appeared quietly behind him, his presence a familiar comfort that carried warmth without interruption. "Thinking about growth again, Master Bruce?" he asked softly. There was no judgment in his voice, only patient observation. Bruce nodded. "I've been noticing how I act, how I feel, and even the small things I don't usually see. I think it changes me, somehow." Alfred's eyes softened. Reflection, even in silence, shapes us more than we often realize. Your awareness is becoming a kind of quiet guide. Bruce leaned closer to the mirror, studying not only his reflection, but the subtle expressions that flickered across his own face. He imagined that the mirror could see into the spaces between thoughts, that it understood the small shifts in feeling and attention that often went unnoticed. He realized that self-reflection was not about finding answers, but about noticing patterns, small gestures, and the quiet movements of his own mind. In that noticing, he felt a sense of gentle power. Alfred moved beside him, quietly seated in the corner of the room. "Mirrors show what is there," he said, "but they also invite us to ask questions we might not have the courage to speak aloud. They teach patience, because reflection cannot be rushed. It grows slowly, and sometimes quietly reveals truths we did not know we carried." Bruce listened, absorbing the words like soft music, and he understood that the mirror was more than glass. It was a space for patience, for introspection, and for gentle growth. The morning stretched quietly. Bruce experimented with small movements, observing how his posture changed his mood, how the tilt of his head could shift the sense of thought within him. He tried a small smile, noting how it softened the tension in his chest. He raised his eyebrows slightly, studying how it altered the light in his eyes. Each small gesture became a lesson, a dialogue with himself, teaching him that the quietest actions often carried the deepest meanings. Outside, the garden stirred gently in the morning breeze. Bruce could see the faint shimmer of dew on the grass, droplets reflecting the light like tiny, patient stars. He imagined that the world was full of mirrors, not just in glass, but in the small connections and patterns that existed in everyday life. The house itself seemed to echo his awareness, each shadow and light reflecting not only the physical world, but the inner rhythm of his thoughts. Alfred poured tea into a small cup and placed it on the desk beside Bruce. The scent of warmth and herbs mingled with the soft light, a subtle anchor that brought the boy's attention gently back to the present moment. "Patience with yourself is as important as noticing the world," Alfred said quietly. "You are learning to perceive deeply, and that perception grows stronger when it is paired with care." Bruce nodded, sipping the tea slowly, feeling its warmth seep into his hands, his chest, his mind. It was a lesson in mindfulness, subtle yet profound, carried in something as ordinary as the act of drinking. Bruce returned his gaze to the mirror. "I think I understand a little more now," he whispered. "Not about everything, but about noticing, about paying attention to how I feel and how others feel." Alfred's eyes reflected gentle approval. "It is a journey," he said, "one that will continue as long as you are willing to walk quietly, patiently, and with care." Bruce closed his eyes briefly, letting the words settle, their resonance mingling with the soft sounds of the house, the gentle creak of floorboards, the distant drip of a leaky roof, the faint whisper of the wind outside. The boy stood slowly, stretching his small arms above his head, feeling the movement echo throughout his body. Each stretch, each deliberate motion, became an exercise in awareness, a dialogue with himself and the space around him. The mirror reflected not just his form, but the subtle shifts in his presence, the quiet attentiveness, the gentle curiosity, the soft wonder that had begun to grow steadily in him over these past days. He moved to the hallway, noticing how the light from the window played across the walls, creating shapes that shifted with the rising sun. Shadows lengthened, shrank, and danced slowly, carrying with them the faint echoes of memory and attention. Bruce realized that the world, like the mirror, was full of reflection. Each object, each shadow, each subtle pattern of light held a story, and noticing those stories shaped him, quietly but undeniably, into someone more aware, more patient, and more attuned to the rhythms of life. Alfred followed silently, as always, a presence that reminded him that reflection need not be solitary to be profound. "Sometimes," Alfred said softly, "it is in the small, repeated acts of noticing and care that we find our quiet strength. The world does not always reward noise or urgency, but those who observe patiently find themselves guided in ways others cannot imagine." Bruce listened, feeling a deep resonance in the words. They reminded him that the gentle path he was learning, the path of reflection, empathy, and quiet attention, was itself a kind of power. Later, Bruce returned to the mirror once more, sitting cross-legged in front of it, and letting the stillness of the morning fill him. He considered his own movements, his gestures, the subtle rhythm of his breathing. He realized that every thought, every glance, every small attention to detail was shaping him in a way that could not be measured by conventional standards. It was a quiet, internal growth, subtle yet profound, a cultivation of awareness, patience, and empathy that would ripple outward in ways he could not yet see. The day continued softly. Sunlight shifted, spilling warmth into the corners of the room. Bruce noticed the delicate patterns it created on the floor, the way it highlighted the textures of the carpet and the walls. Each observation became a lesson in perception, a reminder that life, in all its quiet and subtle complexity, held infinite opportunities for noticing and understanding. Alfred moved quietly beside him, offering guidance when needed, but mostly allowing the boy to discover and reflect on his own. By the time afternoon arrived, Bruce had walked through much of the house again, each hallway and room offering new mirrors to consider, both literal and metaphorical. He felt a growing sense of quiet confidence, not in himself as a hero or a leader, but in his ability to observe, to listen, and to reflect. He had begun to understand that these small, internal powers, patience, attention, empathy, would one day form the foundation of something larger, even if he could not yet name it. As evening approached, Bruce returned to his mirror for one final reflection. He gazed at his young face, noticing the subtle changes brought on by weeks of quiet exploration and observation. He saw the curiosity in his eyes, the tentative confidence forming in his posture, the soft, patient wonder that had begun to define him. The mirror, in its silent way, offered reassurance that growth was not measured in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of attention and care. Alfred sat quietly behind him, the soft lamplight creating a halo around the two figures. "You are learning well," he said softly, noticing, reflecting, and understanding these are the foundations of quiet strength, and they will guide you in ways that no rush or loud action ever could. Bruce closed his eyes, feeling the words sink into his chest, mingling with the quiet rhythm of the house, the soft light, and the gentle shadows. And as the night drew in, Bruce finally allowed himself to rest, carrying with him the sense of quiet awareness that had grown steadily in these hours. Mirrors and conversations, both with himself and with Alfred, had taught him the rhythm of patience, the depth of subtle perception, and the gentle unfolding of inner strength. Somewhere beyond the walls of the manor, the city slept, unaware of the young boy quietly shaping himself, noticing, reflecting, and growing, step by careful step. The city beyond Wayne Manor stirred quietly under the gentle light of morning. Gotham, usually imagined as dark and brooding, had a softness to it, at this hour a gentle rhythm that most overlooked. Bruce leaned out from a window in the upper floor, the cool breeze brushing his face, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and early morning flowers from the garden below. For a boy his age, the city was vast and overwhelming, yet he had begun to notice its subtler details, the hum of distant trams, the careful steps of early pedestrians, the faint echoes of lives moving unseen in small, quiet ways. We want you to know that, just as Bruce notices the world's subtleties, you too are seen, valued, and cared for. Before we continue, take a soft, slow breath. Feel the weight of your body, the rhythm of your heartbeat, and the calm of this moment settling around you. This story is here to guide you gently, like the light of dawn spreading across a quiet city. Soft and persistent, Bruce's gaze wandered along the streets below. He observed the small acts of kindness hidden in plain sight, a man holding a door for a woman, a child offering a flower to a neighbor, an old woman smiling faintly at a passerby. He noticed moments that might otherwise be missed, the soft, overlooked gestures that gave the city its quiet heartbeat. It was not the drama of a headline or the thrill of a story that fascinated him, but these small ripples of goodness, fleeting yet enduring. Alfred appeared quietly behind him, placing a gentle hand on Bruce's shoulder. "You have an eye for things others often miss," he said softly. "It is a gift, one that allows you to see the quiet truths beneath the surface." Bruce nodded, leaning into the presence without turning. I think the city has its own rhythm, its own heartbeat," he whispered. "And if you listen, you can hear it. You can see who it really is, beyond the noise and the chaos." Alfred smiled. "Indeed, there is always a hidden current beneath what the world shows at first glance. That current holds the secrets of patience, empathy, and care." Bruce moved from the window to the balcony, letting the early breeze sweep over him. He could see the rooftops stretching in rows, the chimneys gently puffing smoke into the air, the soft flicker of windows as families began their mornings. The city was alive, not in boisterous clamor, but in the subtle movements that hinted at countless small stories unfolding at once. Bruce realized that, to notice these stories required patience, quiet attention, and a willingness to look beneath the surface. It was a kind of power, not flashy or immediate, but enduring and deeply instructive. A pigeon settled on the railing beside him, cooing softly. Bruce watched it, noticing the delicate tilt of its head, the smooth ruffle of its feathers, the careful balance it maintained against the wind. Even this small creature seemed to carry its own rhythm, its own quiet story. Bruce felt a connection in that moment, a reminder that all life, no matter how modest or overlooked, possessed depth, intention, and a silent wisdom. Alfred's voice broke the silence gently. "Gotham is not only what is loud and visible," he said. "It is also the soft undercurrent of life, the small acts of kindness, the quiet perseverance, the unseen courage. You are learning to see that, Bruce. It is a rare gift to notice the small truths of a world so often obsessed with spectacle." Bruce nodded, taking in the cityscape with a patient eye. I want to understand it all," he whispered. "Even the things that seem too small to matter." They watched together as a street musician began to play softly on a corner, the notes delicate, almost hesitant, blending with the rhythm of footsteps and distant traffic. Bruce listened intently, noticing the way the music reflected the people passing by, the gentle sway of a woman carrying her child, the soft smile of a man tipping his hat, the careful tread of an elderly couple navigating the uneven pavement. Every note, every movement, every small detail seemed to connect into a quiet harmony that he could feel deep in his chest. Bruce imagined that each resident of Gotham carried a story, small yet profound, shaping the city in ways no one headline or loud event could capture. He began to see patterns, subtle interactions that spoke of resilience, kindness, and hidden joy. A baker setting out morning rolls, a child leaving a note on a neighbor's doorstep, a janitor pausing to feed a stray cattle. Small gestures, unnoticed by most, but significant in the quiet rhythm of life. Alfred leaned slightly against the railing, silent and patient. "These are the soft secrets of Gotham," he said. "Most people never notice them, but you, Bruce, are beginning to understand that the city is not defined only by fear or crime, but by these fleeting, hidden moments of connection. They are the threads that weave the fabric of a community, delicate yet enduring." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the words settle softly in his chest. The boy's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the morning clouds reflected a gentle gold. He could see the faint shimmer of the river, its surface rippling with quiet energy. Each detail, each motion, carried meaning, even if it was invisible to the casual observer. Bruce felt a swell of quiet wonder, a recognition that the world was infinitely rich, even in its softest, most understated moments. He turned back to the streets, noticing a small park where a group of children played, their laughter soft yet resonant, mingling with the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze. He watched as an older child helped a younger one up after a stumble. The simple act of care unnoticed by anyone else, yet profoundly significant. Bruce realized that courage, empathy, and kindness often lived in these small gestures, hidden in plain sight for those who took the time to observe. Alfred's gaze followed him, steady and calm. "You are learning that power is not always loud or immediate," he said. "The quiet strength of noticing, understanding, and caring carries its own influence, shaping people and moments in ways that endure far longer than spectacle." Bruce absorbed the words, letting them blend with the rhythm of the city, the soft music, and the gentle sway of life unfolding around him. The wind shifted slightly, carrying with it the scent of rain still lingering from last night. Bruce inhaled deeply, feeling the mixture of air, moisture, and faint flowers awaken a sense of connection to the world. The city was alive, not in chaos, but in subtle harmony. Every person, every creature, every leaf, every note of music contributed to a vast, quiet symphony, and Bruce, in his careful observation, had begun to perceive the patterns, the delicate connections, the soft secrets that most overlooked. As the morning matured, the light shifted across the buildings, casting shadows that stretched and folded gently across the streets. Bruce moved back to the window, settling against the sill, feeling the quiet rhythm of life pulse through him. Each detail he noticed, each kindness, each pattern, each small, unnoticed story, was a lesson in patience, empathy, and perception. He began to understand that his awareness was itself a gift, a subtle power that would grow steadily and silently over time. Alfred placed a cup of tea beside him, the steam curling gently toward Bruce's face. "The city teaches those who are willing to notice," Alfred said softly. "It is not always dramatic, not always urgent, but the quiet truths are no less profound. They are the foundation upon which courage, empathy, and understanding are built." Bruce nodded, sipping the tea slowly, letting warmth spread through his chest, mingling with the quiet awe that had grown steadily within him. And as the day continued, Bruce remained at the window, absorbing the city's rhythm, noticing the small gestures that went unseen by most, listening to the whispers of life that carried through the streets. He understood now that Gotham was not merely a backdrop for tragedy or heroism. It was alive with subtle acts of kindness, resilience, and quiet courage. And in noticing these soft secrets, he felt a small, growing certainty that the world was richer, gentler, and more connected than it seemed at first glance. As evening approached, Bruce finally leaned back from the window, eyes soft and thoughtful. The soft gold of the setting sun mingled with the silver shimmer of the city, casting gentle patterns across the room. Gotham's secrets were quiet, patient, and beautiful, and he knew he had begun to understand them in ways few could. Alfred watched silently, a gentle smile playing on his lips. The boy was learning the subtle truths of the world, and in doing so, was discovering the quiet foundations of the person he was becoming. And that night, as Bruce lay in bed, the echoes of Gotham's soft secrets lulled him toward sleep. The rhythm of lives, the patterns of kindness, the gentle pulse of the city's quiet heart all settled within him like a soft, persistent warmth. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city breathed gently, and Bruce, aware, patient, and quietly attuned, drifted into dreams of observation, empathy, and the enduring power of small, unnoticed truths. The manor was quiet, save for the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway and the faint hum of wind brushing against the stone walls. Bruce moved slowly through the rooms, each step deliberate, aware of the rhythm of the house, as if it were breathing along with him. Today, there was no rush, no need to explore beyond walls or climb rooftops. Today was about listening, observing, and letting the world impart its lessons without interruption. "We want you to know, just as Bruce is learning, that silence is not empty, it is full. Full of insight, full of connection, full of quiet understanding. Take a deep breath now, and allow the calm to settle into you. Let the world outside this story pause. Feel your body, your mind, and the gentle pulse of life within. This chapter is a lullaby of quiet learning, and you are right here in it, safe, cared for." And seeing, Bruce settled into the study, where shelves of books reached to the ceiling and the warm scent of aged paper filled the air. Alfred was there, quietly arranging papers on a small table, his movements steady and unhurried. There was no lecture, no insistence, no noise that demanded attention. Instead, there was presence, a patient, steady guidance that allowed Bruce to notice, think, and absorb at his own pace. He realized that sometimes the most profound lessons were learned, not in action, but in stillness. Alfred looked at him with gentle eyes. "There is much to be understood without words, Master Bruce," he said softly. "Observation, reflection, patience. These are skills that can guide you more than any loud or immediate act. Sometimes the world teaches through silence, if you are willing to listen." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the words settle in his chest. He had noticed this in the city, in the house, and in the subtle rhythms of life itself, the quiet actions, the small gestures, the invisible currents that shaped people and places alike. He picked up a book and traced his fingers over the letters, noticing the texture of the paper, the faint indentations of ink, the rhythm of language waiting to unfold. He read softly, aloud only to himself, savoring each word and the silence that surrounded it. In this quiet, he felt himself growing, learning not just the content of the pages, but the gentle discipline of focus, patience, and awareness. Each letter, each sentence, each thought was like a small heartbeat in the rhythm of learning. Alfred moved closer, a warm cup of tea in hand. "Learning in silence is not inactivity," he said. "It is engagement of a different kind, one that sharpens the mind, deepens empathy, and strengthens perception. You notice more in silence than you often do in noise. Remember that." Bruce accepted the tea, feeling the warmth spread through his hands and into his chest. It was a small, comforting ritual, one that carried meaning far beyond the simple act of drinking. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows, painting the room with long, soft stripes of light. Bruce watched the patterns move across the walls and floor, observing how the shadows shifted with time. It was in these subtleties that he felt a quiet awe. Each light, each shadow, each gentle variation told a story of its own, a story that required patience and attention to fully perceive. He realized that the city, the manor, and even people themselves carried similar subtle stories, waiting for someone willing to notice them. Bruce closed his eyes and listened to the silence more intently. He could hear the soft creak of floorboards, the faint scratching of a pen from another room, the hum of air moving through the vents. He became aware of the rhythm of his own breath, steady and calm, and the gentle beat of his heart echoing quietly in his chest. In this way, he learned that silence was not a void, was a conduit for awareness, a teacher that spoke softly but profoundly to those patient enough to pay attention. Alfred watched him silently, offering no words, only presence. Bruce felt the warmth and assurance in the stillness. "I think I understand," he whispered, "that even when I do nothing, I am still learning. Just by noticing, by feeling, by being patient, I am changing." Alfred's expression softened, a small, approving smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Exactly, Master Bruce. Growth is not always visible. It is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, subtle, and only felt in the depths of awareness." Bruce wandered to the window, looking out at the garden where leaves moved lazily in the breeze, and the sunlight glinted off droplets of last night's rain. He saw patterns in the way branches intertwined, in the gentle sway of flowers, in the subtle interactions of birds perched nearby. Everything was alive with small, meaningful motion, and he felt the pulse of it resonate within himself. He understood that silence allowed these small truths to emerge, allowing him to perceive connections that often went unnoticed in the noise of daily life. Alfred joined him at the window, quiet and observant. "Patience and silence can reveal the most important lessons," he said softly. "The world has many voices, but the ones worth hearing often whisper. Learning to listen for them will serve you in ways loudness never could." Bruce nodded, absorbing the calm and weight of the moment. He realized that the soft, hidden currents of life, the whispers, the subtle patterns, the quiet gestures were just as significant as any visible or dramatic event. Bruce moved back into the study, sitting cross-legged on the floor, and closed his eyes once more. He let the silence settle around him like a soft blanket, feeling his awareness extend outward. He could sense the faint echoes of footsteps in distant hallways, the subtle sway of a curtain in another room, the delicate vibration of air through the open window. Each small sensation carried a lesson, each quiet observation a thread weaving into the tapestry of his understanding. The day passed in slow, unhurried progression. Bruce explored corners of the manor he had never considered, listened to the faint sounds of the household, and allowed his mind to rest in the calm of observation. Alfred remained nearby, offering the occasional guidance in gentle whispers or a simple nod, reinforcing the notion that growth was not measured in speed or volume, but in depth, patience, and quiet comprehension. As evening approached, the light in the study softened, the warm glow of lamps mingling with the dimming natural light outside. Bruce sat back, feeling the steady hum of the house, the calm rhythm of the world outside, and the patient presence of Alfred beside him. He realized that silence had taught him much: patience, empathy, focus, and the subtle awareness of the spaces, people, and lives around him. These lessons, he understood, were small, quiet, and powerful in their persistence. The boy closed his eyes and leaned back, letting the gentle rhythm of silence lull him toward rest. The house seemed to exhale with him, shadows stretching slowly across the walls, the faint scent of aged books and polished wood mingling with the cooling air. He thought of the city beyond the manor, alive with quiet stories and hidden acts of care, and felt connected to it through the patient awareness he had cultivated. Alfred placed a blanket over Bruce's shoulders and murmured, "Rest now, Master Bruce. The lessons of silence will continue to grow within you, even as you sleep. Tomorrow, you will awaken with a deeper understanding of the world and yourself." Bruce nodded softly, feeling a gentle warmth spread through him, a comfort in the knowledge that the quiet he had embraced was shaping him steadily and profoundly. And, as he drifted into sleep, Bruce carried the calm rhythm of the day with him, the small, unseen lessons, the subtle patterns of life, the quiet strength of observation, patience, and empathy. Somewhere in the manor, Alfred moved silently through the rooms, the soft glow of lamplight trailing in his wake, and beyond the walls, the city breathed, filled with quiet stories, soft acts of care, and the enduring pulse of life that Bruce had begun to notice and understand. The lessons of silence were not loud, nor dramatic, nor urgent, yet in their quiet persistence, they had the power to shape hearts, minds, and the subtle course of life. And Bruce, patient, attentive, and quietly growing, was learning to harness them with care, step by deliberate step. The city of Gotham stretched below Bruce like a living tapestry, stitched together from stone, light, and shadow. From the quiet height of the manor's rooftop, he could see the streets winding in soft, irregular paths, the rooftops catching stray beams of sunlight that fell between drifting clouds. The world was vast, yet it did not overwhelm him here. Up above, the noise seemed to soften, the urgency of the streets below replaced by the gentle rhythm of the wind and the subtle creaks of the old building. Before we begin, take a gentle breath with Bruce. Feel the quiet space around you. Let your attention rest on the subtle rhythms of your body, the steady heartbeat, the rise and fall of breath, the soft hum of presence that connects you to this moment. Just as Bruce observes Gotham from above, notice the patterns in your own worlds, the quiet motions, the small harmonies, the unseen currents that guide your heart. Bruce moved carefully along the edge of the rooftop, letting his fingertips brush against the cool stone. Each step was measured, deliberate, yet there was freedom in the height, an openness that invited reflection. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the wind play against his face, tousling his hair in gentle, unpredictable waves. Here, suspended between earth and sky, he felt a strange sense of calm, a patient awareness that seemed to extend beyond himself. Alfred appeared quietly behind him, as steady and unobtrusive as ever. "The city from this height teaches a different kind of lesson," he said softly. "You see patterns that are invisible from below, the subtle flow of life and light. Observing quietly, without rushing, allows insight that cannot be grasped amid chaos." Bruce nodded, his gaze still lifted toward the horizon where the sun's rays touched distant towers, painting them in warm gold. He felt the truth in Alfred's words, the recognition that perspective, patience, and reflection could reveal secrets the eye alone could not see. The boy leaned against the low stone parapet, watching the interplay of light and shadow across the rooftops. Chimneys cast long, gentle shapes. Small gardens atop terraces reflected the slow sway of plants in the breeze. Laundry hung on distant lines fluttered rhythmically, almost like a quiet dance. Every detail spoke of life continuing in ways subtle, soft, and persistent. Bruce realized that the world's quiet movements, unnoticed by many, were a kind of melody, a lullaby of patterns that unfolded endlessly, if one had the patience to see them. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook, one he had begun carrying during his morning walks across the house and the city. He sketched lightly, capturing the shapes of chimneys, the angles of rooftops, the way light fell across corners. Each mark was an observation, a meditation, a record of the rhythm of life that spoke without words. The act of drawing itself felt like a quiet dialogue with the city, a recognition of the beauty hidden in its ordinary, overlooked motions. Alfred leaned near him, resting a hand on the parapet. "Not every lesson needs to be spoken," he said. "Sometimes, observation alone teaches. Sometimes, the act of seeing is enough to shift understanding, to grow patience, to cultivate empathy." Bruce traced a line across the page, noting the soft shadows of a distant rooftop garden. He understood that Alfred's words were not about skill, or achievement, or success. They were about perception, connection, and the subtle growth of the self through careful attention. The city began to stir as morning deepened. A few early pedestrians wandered the streets, moving slowly, their footsteps blending with the soft hum of distant traffic. Bruce watched a delivery boy pause to adjust a bundle of parcels. A woman crouched to comfort a child who had tripped. These small acts, quiet and unremarked upon by the world, resonated deeply within him. From this height, he could see the subtle pulse of kindness threading through the city, connecting people in ways they never noticed, but that mattered all the same. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the wind sweep across his face, carrying faint scents of baked bread, damp stone, and the distant river. Bruce imagined that every breeze carried small, unspoken narratives of everyday life. There was a rhythm to it all, a quiet music that flowed unnoticed through the streets and rooftops. And by noticing it, by simply being present, he felt a small but profound connection to the city, a recognition that he was both observer and participant in its ongoing story. Alfred spoke quietly, not to instruct, but to accompany. "Rooftops offer perspective, but they also teach patience," he said. "Looking from above, you see life in its entirety, yet the details do not lose their significance. You learn to balance attention to the small and the large, to see how both matter." Bruce nodded. He had already begun to understand this balance, the quiet gestures, the unnoticed kindnesses, the soft currents of human care all were part of the same flowing rhythm, visible if one took the time to look. A stray cat crossed a nearby rooftop, pausing to watch a bird hop along the ledge. Bruce smiled faintly, noting the careful movements, the silent attention, the delicate balance of predator and observer. There was a lesson in the simplicity of the encounter, in the patience required to exist fully in one's space while observing the world around. He began to see that observation itself was a quiet power, a subtle strength that could shape thought, awareness, and emotional understanding over time. The boy opened his notebook again, sketching the distant curve of a river reflecting the morning sky, the patterns of chimneys and rooftops, the faint glimmer of windows catching sunlight. Each stroke of his pencil was deliberate, patient, a meditation on form, rhythm, and light. In the quiet act of recording, he discovered a sense of focus, a deepening awareness of both the city and himself. It was a lesson not taught by books or words, but by presence, patience, and careful observation. Bruce paused to stretch, arms lifting slowly toward the sky, feeling the wind move across his small frame. Each stretch was a quiet affirmation of his awareness, a physical reminder that observation and patience extended beyond thought and into the body. Alfred watched silently, knowing that this quiet practice, repeated daily, was shaping the boy in profound ways, teaching resilience, focus, and emotional depth without any need for dramatic demonstration. The sun continued its slow climb, casting longer shadows that shifted subtly across the rooftops. Bruce noticed the way the light moved, the patterns it created, the rhythm of shadows stretching and folding as if the city itself were breathing. Each observation brought a sense of calm, a gentle recognition that the world was alive with quiet movements, small stories, and rhythms that were invisible to most but profoundly meaningful to those who took the time to see. Alfred finally spoke again, his voice blending with the whisper of the wind. These rooftop reveries are more than idle observation, Master Bruce. They are lessons in patience, perception, and emotional connection. You'll learn to see the world as it is, yet also as it could be, if only we notice the subtleties and care enough to act gently. Bruce nodded, feeling the weight of the wisdom in the words, and letting it settle quietly into the rhythm of his own thoughts. As the morning gave way to early afternoon, Bruce lingered on the rooftop, watching the patterns of light and life, listening to the soft hum of distant streets, and noting every small act of connection unfolding below. Each observation became a lesson, each pause a meditation, each breath a quiet affirmation of presence. The city, alive yet gentle from this height, offered him insight and reflection that would remain with him long after he descended. Finally, Bruce settled back against the parapet, closing his notebook and allowing the wind to brush against his face. The city hummed softly beneath him, a quiet symphony of unnoticed kindness, subtle motion, and patient rhythms. In this suspended space, he understood that growth, empathy, and awareness were cultivated not in spectacle, but in quiet, attentive observation. And he knew that these rooftop reveries, repeated with care and mindfulness, would continue to shape him in ways both profound and enduring. That night, as Bruce returned to his room, the lessons of the rooftop followed him quietly, the balance of observation and participation, the rhythm of life both small and large, and the gentle awareness that every unnoticed story mattered. Alfred watched him move silently, a comforting presence, as always, knowing that the boy's mind and heart were growing steadily, shaped by quiet wonder, patient attention, and the soft, persistent beauty of the world around him. And as he drifted into sleep, Bruce carried with him the memory of the city seen from above, of its hidden rhythms, its small gestures of care, and its quiet, enduring heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the manor, Gotham breathed softly, full of secrets, waiting to be noticed. And Bruce, patient, attentive, and quietly growing, rested in the calm assurance that the world, if observed with care, revealed its deepest lessons in the gentlest ways. The kitchen was warm, filled with the faint aroma of toasted bread and gentle hints of melted cheese. Bruce sat at the small wooden table, a plate before him, its contents simple yet comforting, a sandwich carefully prepared by Alfred, who moved with the quiet ease of someone who had long mastered the art of unnoticed care. The world outside hummed softly, distant traffic and the occasional crow blending with the steady tick of the kitchen clock. Before we begin, take a deep breath and notice the warmth of your own body, the calm rhythm of your breathing. Just as Bruce experiences the quiet comfort of a shared meal, allow yourself to feel the gentle safety and care in this moment. You are here, present, and valued. Let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket, easing the mind into reflection and gentle awareness. Bruce picked up his sandwich slowly, savoring the texture and the faint sweetness of the bread. It was not the food itself that captivated him, but the intention behind it, the care woven into each slice. The patience in assembling it, the quiet thoughtfulness of Alfred's hands and mind. In that simple act, Bruce noticed something profound. Kindness often manifests in the smallest gestures, unnoticed yet enduring, like tiny seeds planted in a quiet garden. Alfred sat across from him, watching with a calm attentiveness that felt both grounding and reassuring. "It is easy to overlook small acts," he said softly. "Yet these gestures, shared quietly, carry weight far greater than noise or drama. A meal, a smile, a simple presence, these are the foundations of connection and care." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the words settle in his chest. He realized that heroism did not always need grand actions. Sometimes, the quiet moments held the deepest resonance. The boy took a small bite, noticing the warmth of the bread, the soft texture of the cheese, and the gentle snap of a fresh lettuce leaf. Each sensation reminded him that life was made up of these simple, repeated moments, each infused with care and attention. Alfred poured a cup of tea, placing it beside Bruce's plate, the steam curling in soft spirals that caught the morning light. The room felt like a cocoon, safe, slow, and deliberate in its pace. Bruce glanced at Alfred and smiled faintly. "I like this," he said softly. "Not just the sandwich, but the quiet, the way we can sit here and notice things." Alfred's eyes softened. "It is a gift to recognize and appreciate the ordinary," he replied. "Often, the world feels loud, chaotic, or overwhelming, but it is within these small, shared moments that we find clarity, comfort, and connection." Outside, the garden shimmered with dew, droplets reflecting the light like tiny prisms. Bruce thought of the city he had observed from rooftops, the quiet kindnesses, the unnoticed gestures, the subtle harmony hidden amid noise and shadow. Here, in the intimate stillness of the kitchen, he realized that the same lessons applied close to home. Small acts, patient attention, and shared presence carried a profound significance that could be felt deeply, even if unspoken. Alfred placed his hands on the table, fingers loosely intertwined. "Shared experiences, even simple ones, create invisible bonds," he said. "They teach empathy, patience, and care without needing explanation or ceremony. You are beginning to understand that, Bruce, and it will guide you in ways you cannot yet see." Bruce nodded, feeling a warm resonance in his chest. He began to notice the subtle rhythms between them, the way Alfred poured tea with deliberate patience, the quiet smile exchanged over the sandwich, the gentle shifts in posture that conveyed attention and care. A small breeze drifted through the open window, carrying with it the scent of flowers and damp earth from the garden below. Bruce inhaled deeply, noticing how the subtle fragrance mingled with the warmth of the kitchen. It reminded him that even unnoticed elements, like a quiet wind, a distant bird call, or the faint rustle of leaves, could enrich a shared moment, adding depth and texture to experiences that might otherwise seem ordinary. Bruce finished his sandwich slowly, savoring the last bite with quiet appreciation. He felt a sense of calm, the kind that emerges when one is fully present, fully aware, and fully attentive to the simple joys of a shared space. Alfred moved quietly to clear the dishes, his presence unassuming but steady, a reminder that care and attention often worked best in silence. Bruce watched, learning that observation itself could become an act of connection. The boy looked up at Alfred. "I think I understand now," he said softly, "that sharing, even something small, like a sandwich, can teach more than words sometimes. It's a way of noticing each other, and of saying we care without needing to say anything at all." Alfred's smile was gentle, approving, as if the words were the quiet acknowledgement of a lesson long in learning. "Exactly, Master Bruce. The small, repeated acts of care build a foundation that can hold through life's uncertainties. They are often the most enduring gestures we give or receive." Bruce pushed back his chair slightly and stretched, feeling the movement ripple through his small frame. Each motion, each careful stretch, was a reminder that the physical, emotional, and relational dimensions of life were intertwined. Just as he had noticed the quiet rhythms of Gotham from rooftops, he now recognized the rhythms of home, the way small gestures nurtured bonds, the unspoken language of care, the quiet strength found in attentiveness. Outside, a bird hopped along the windowsill, its soft chirp blending with the distant hum of the city. Bruce smiled faintly, feeling a subtle echo of connection, one more thread in the intricate web of observation, empathy, and quiet attentiveness that wove his world together. Alfred noticed the smile and said nothing, only sharing in the calm presence that the moment held. Bruce returned his attention to the table, noting the slight indentation left by his plate, the faint swirl of steam from the tea, the shadows shifting as sunlight moved across the room. He realized that these seemingly insignificant details carried meaning, forming patterns of care, awareness, and shared experience. Each act, no matter how small, created a resonance that extended beyond immediate perception, leaving a gentle imprint on the heart as the morning faded toward afternoon. Bruce lingered in the kitchen, savoring the quiet after the shared meal. He thought of the city beyond the manor, the rooftops, the streets, the unseen acts of kindness, and recognized that the same principles applied here. Presence, observation, care, and patience created ripples that extended far beyond the immediate moment. He felt a gentle awe for the interconnectedness of life, even in its most ordinary expressions. Alfred finally spoke, breaking the silence not with instruction, but with companionship. "Remember, Master Bruce, that growth is often found in the small gestures, the repeated acts of kindness, and the patient observation of the world around you. You are learning to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, to notice what others overlook, and to connect through presence rather than words." Bruce nodded, feeling the resonance of the lesson settle into his chest. The day continued softly. Bruce and Alfred moved through the manor with quiet purpose, tidying small corners, observing subtle changes in light and shadow, and noting the gentle movements of household objects in response to breeze or touch. Each observation, each small action, reinforced the lesson of connection, the understanding that care, attention, and shared presence mattered more than spectacle or urgency. As evening approached, Bruce returned to his room, feeling the warmth of the kitchen linger in his chest. The memories of shared sandwiches, subtle gestures, and quiet smiles settled around him like a soft blanket. He understood now that connection was not about dramatic events, heroic displays, or grandiose declarations. It was about noticing, caring, and being present in the lives of those around him. The quiet gestures, the small acts, the subtle attentiveness were the foundation of enduring relationships. Alfred followed, offering his customary presence without intrusion, a soft guardian of routine and awareness. Bruce reflected on the morning and early afternoon, feeling a calm satisfaction in the understanding he had gained. The city, the manor, the shared moments, they all carried lessons in empathy, care, and connection, and he knew that these lessons would quietly shape him as he grew, creating a foundation of subtle strength, gentle observation, and the capacity for enduring kindness. That night, as Bruce lay in bed, the memory of shared sandwiches and shared smiles lingered softly in his mind. The quiet joy of connection, the gentle rhythm of presence, and the subtle lessons of observation and care formed a gentle lullaby, guiding him toward sleep. Somewhere beyond the walls of Wayne Manor, Gotham continued its quiet rhythm, full of small gestures, hidden kindnesses, and stories waiting to be noticed. And Bruce, patient, attentive, and quietly growing, rested in the calm assurance that he was learning to connect, care, and understand in ways that mattered far beyond words. The quiet of the manor at night was different now. Shadows stretched longer, moving slowly across the familiar walls, and the air carried the faint scent of polished wood and lingering warmth from the day. Bruce stood before a tall mirror in his room, gazing at his reflection. The boy he had been was still there, tucked somewhere behind the careful posture and measured movements of the young man he was becoming. Yet there was something new, something shaped by observation, patience, and quiet awareness that glimmered faintly in his eyes. Before we begin, take a slow, deliberate breath with Bruce. Feel the calm expand gently in your chest, the quiet rhythm of your heartbeat, the soft stillness that surrounds you. As he reflects on himself in the mirror, allow yourself to notice your own thoughts without judgment, to watch them drift by like clouds across a gentle sky. This chapter is a lullaby of self-awareness, a gentle meditation on who we are becoming in the quiet spaces of life. Bruce traced the edge of the mirror with his fingertip, noticing the subtle distortions in the glass, the way the reflection shifted slightly with the light. He saw himself not only the exterior, but the quiet changes beneath the surface. There was a patience that had begun to settle into his movements, a softness in his awareness of others, and a curiosity about the small, unnoticed details of the world. He realized that his reflection was more than skin and bone. It was the accumulation of every silent lesson, every act of observation, and every small gesture of care that had shaped him over the years. Alfred entered quietly, placing a hand on the back of a chair, careful not to disturb the stillness. "Reflections are not just mirrors of appearance, Master Bruce," he said softly. "They are echoes of what you carry inside, the awareness, patience, empathy, and quiet understanding you have cultivated. Look closely, and you will see more than a face. You will see the growth that words cannot capture." Bruce nodded, letting the words sink into the calm rhythm of his thoughts. He studied his own expression, noting the tension in his shoulders, the faint line between his brows, the way his eyes held a quiet attentiveness. Each detail told a story of growth, of small lessons learned and carefully integrated into the fabric of who he was becoming. Bruce recognized that this reflection was not a judgment, nor a measure of success, but a gentle acknowledgement of progress, patience, and the quiet cultivation of inner strength. The boy's mind wandered to Gotham, and to the rooftops and streets he had observed in the early morning hours. He remembered the subtle gestures of kindness, the unnoticed acts of care, and the delicate rhythms of life unfolding quietly beneath his gaze. Those lessons, once external and observed, now resonated inwardly, shaping not only how he saw the world, but how he understood himself within it. He realized that growth was not dramatic. It was slow, subtle, and often invisible, yet profoundly transformative. Alfred's voice broke the silence once more, calm and measured. "Masks, Master Bruce, are not merely for hiding. They can be for seeing, understanding, and exploring the world, while protecting what is most vulnerable within. A mask allows you to engage deeply without fear, to navigate the complexities of life, while maintaining the integrity of your inner self." Bruce considered the words, his gaze returning to the mirror. He did not yet wear the mask that would one day define him to the world, but he understood the principle, that perception, awareness, and gentle care could coexist with protection and discretion. He practiced small gestures in front of the mirror, shifting his posture, adjusting his expression, and noticing the subtle ways movement affected perception. The exercise was quiet, deliberate, and reflective, not for vanity, but for awareness. Each small movement, each careful observation, taught him more about the balance between inner truth and outward presence, between quiet empathy and the need for careful boundaries. The city outside the window shimmered faintly in the moonlight, the streets quiet but alive with the rhythm of unseen lives. Bruce imagined the rooftops and alleyways, the small gestures of kindness and patience he had observed in others. He saw the reflection of those moments mirrored within himself, the growing awareness, the patience, and the gentle understanding that connected him to the world without words. He turned his attention back to the mirror, noticing the small imperfections in the glass, the faint streaks of condensation from the night's cooling air. These imperfections did not diminish the reflection. Rather, they reminded him that growth was not about perfection, but about careful attention, observation, and the cultivation of subtle strength. Bruce realized that just as the city had hidden patterns, shadows, and rhythms, so too did he contain layers, textures, and small, often unnoticed qualities that made him whole. Alfred moved to stand quietly nearby, his presence steady and reassuring. The mask you may one day wear is a reflection, not only of necessity, but of understanding, he said. It is not for concealment alone, but for clarity of purpose, clarity of empathy, and clarity of connection to the world around you. Bruce nodded, feeling the words echo softly in his mind. He understood that introspection and self-reflection were not passive acts. They were active, deliberate engagements with one's inner life, fostering patience, care, and insight. Bruce spent hours in quiet contemplation, practicing subtle gestures, observing his breathing, and reflecting on the accumulation of experiences that had shaped him. Each memory, each lesson, each gentle interaction with Alfred or the city formed a thread in the intricate tapestry of his growth. He saw his reflection not as a static image, but as a living story, unfolding quietly, yet profoundly with every passing moment. The wind stirred faintly outside, brushing against the window and carrying the scent of damp earth and distant flowers. Bruce inhaled slowly, letting the fragrance anchor him in the present. He felt the continuity of his learning, the rooftops, the city's rhythms, the quiet gestures of care, and the attentive observation all converging in the moment before the mirror. He recognized that reflection was not merely seeing what is visible, but perceiving the subtle truths of presence, awareness, and emotional depth. Alfred spoke once more, softly and deliberately. You are learning to navigate the world with subtlety, Master Bruce. The mask, when it comes, will not be a barrier, but a tool, one that allows you to protect, observe, and care without losing the essence of who you are. Bruce nodded, feeling the calm weight of understanding settle in his chest. He recognized that quiet strength, empathy, and careful observation were becoming as much a part of him as his own. Reflection in the glass. Night deepened around Wayne Manor, and the shadows in the room stretched across the walls in slow, deliberate arcs. Bruce remained before the mirror, studying, practicing, reflecting. He understood that growth was not about spectacle or speed, but about patient accumulations, small gestures, quiet observation, and thoughtful reflection forming the foundation of a subtle but enduring power. He finally stepped back from the mirror, taking one last, deliberate look at his reflection. The boy he had been and the young man he was becoming coexisted in the glass, connected by the quiet lessons of observation, empathy, and gentle awareness. Bruce felt a small, profound sense of calm, the reassurance that growth, patience, and self-understanding were quietly shaping him into someone capable of navigating both the visible and hidden worlds with integrity and care. As he lay in bed that night, Bruce carried the lessons of the mirror with him, the patient observation, the quiet empathy, and the gentle awareness that every reflection, every gesture, and every small act held significance. The city beyond the manor pulsed softly in the darkness, full of unnoticed kindnesses, subtle rhythms, and hidden stories. And Bruce, thoughtful, attentive, and quietly growing, drifted toward sleep, aware that the lessons of reflection would continue to shape him in ways both profound and enduring. Somewhere in the quiet streets of Gotham, the world continued its rhythm. Bruce's reflection, his patient attention, and the small but persistent awareness he cultivated would ripple outward in gentle, unseen ways, shaping the boy into someone capable of noticing, caring, and quietly making a difference in the lives of those around him. And as the night settled fully, he rested in the calm assurance that growth, like this city, was an ongoing, patient, and beautiful process. The streets of Gotham were quieter than usual that evening, the city settling into a slow rhythm as twilight draped its muted colors over rooftops and alleys. Bruce walked among the shadows, not with the urgency of a hero in action, but with the deliberate patience of someone noticing the world around him, listening to its subtle currents, and quietly observing where help might be needed. Before we begin, take a slow, calming breath with Bruce. Let the tension of your day ease. Feel the quiet pulse of your body, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Notice the world around you not with eyes that rush, but with awareness that sees small gestures, tiny patterns, and the quiet courage that exists in even the simplest acts. Tonight, the story is about noticing, understanding, and the quiet power of small deeds. Bruce passed a narrow alley where a young boy struggled to carry a bundle of books larger than his small arms could manage. Without hesitation, Bruce stepped closer and offered his hand. "Here, let me help," he said softly. The boy hesitated, then accepted the offer, and Bruce carried half the load with careful patience. There was no applause, no recognition, just the warm satisfaction of easing another's burden. Alfred's words came to him in memory. Heroism is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply noticing what is needed and responding with care. Bruce felt the truth of this as he handed the last book to the boy, watching the small smile of gratitude spread across the child's face. In that brief exchange, he understood that courage did not require grand gestures. It often lived in tiny, deliberate choices made quietly and without expectation. As he continued through the city, Bruce noticed a woman struggling to calm a frightened dog tangled in its leash. He knelt gently, speaking in soft tones, letting the dog feel the warmth of his attention. Slowly, patiently, he helped untangle the leash, sensing the anxiety and relief in equal measure. The woman offered a quiet thank you, a gesture that carried more weight than any loud declaration could. Bruce felt a small pulse of calm satisfaction, a recognition that his presence, attentiveness, and willingness to act in subtle ways could ripple quietly through the lives of others. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the scent of rain-soaked streets and distant flowers. Bruce inhaled, letting the familiar rhythm of the city settle into him. Every small interaction, every unnoticed act of care was shaping him, teaching him about empathy, patience, and the quiet forms of courage that rarely made headlines but mattered profoundly to those touched by them. A stray cat darted from a shadowed doorway, knocking over a small stack of crates. Bruce moved quickly, carefully righting the crates before anyone noticed the minor disruption. The cat paused, staring with faint curiosity, before disappearing again into the alley. Bruce smiled softly at the simplicity of the moment. Courage, he realized, was not always about dramatic rescues. It could be the gentle assertion of order, the small action that preserved safety, or the quiet presence that allowed others to breathe more easily. He walked past a dimly lit corner where a man sat hunched, shivering in the cold. Bruce hesitated briefly, feeling the weight of uncertainty. But then he remembered Alfred's patient guidance and the quiet lessons learned on rooftops and in shared kitchens. Noticing what was needed and responding with care, no matter how small, was a form of courage in itself. He approached and offered a blanket, wrapped gently around the man's shoulders. The man's eyes lifted, a soft nod of acknowledgement passing between them, and Bruce felt the subtle warmth of connection. A reminder that courage could manifest quietly, without recognition, and still change the world. Bruce paused at the edge of a park, watching children play in fading light. One of them tripped, scraping a knee. Bruce moved closer, offering a hand, a comforting smile, and a soft word of reassurance. The child's tears subsided, replaced by tentative trust, and Bruce stayed long enough to ensure the small wound was cleaned and bandaged with care. In the simplicity of these tiny interventions, he felt a profound sense of purpose, not the thrill of danger or spectacle, but the quiet power of attentive, empathetic action. The city seemed to respond to his presence in subtle ways. A street lamp flickered, casting a steady circle of light across a darkened sidewalk. The faint murmur of distant footsteps harmonized with the rhythm of his own steps. Bruce noticed these small details, sensing that courage was not isolated to his actions alone, but intertwined with the environment, the movements of others, and the quiet rhythms of everyday life. He remembered the lessons from rooftops, mirrors, and kitchens. Observation, empathy, reflection, and presence were the tools of understanding and subtle strength. Courage, he realized, was not always visible to the world. It was found in these quiet moments of noticing, choosing to act, and sustaining gentle attention to what others needed. Each small deed carried more meaning than the loudest declaration. Each tiny act became a ripple that extended beyond immediate perception. A soft rain began to fall, the droplets tapping gently against the streets and rooftops. Bruce lifted his face, letting the cool water brush against his skin. The rain was not discomforted, was a lullaby, a gentle accompaniment to the quiet heroism unfolding in small, deliberate gestures across the city. Each droplet, each subtle sound, seemed to remind him that life was full of unnoticed acts, hidden courage, and the small, persistent kindness that shaped the world softly, patiently, and steadily. He helped an elderly man cross a narrow street, steadying him against the faint sway of an uneven curb. The man's cane tapped softly against the pavement, but with Bruce's calm presence, the steps became secure, measured, and safe. A simple nod of thanks passed between them, and Bruce felt again the quiet resonance of small acts, moments of courage that mattered more deeply than any grand adventure. Passing an open doorway, Bruce noticed a young woman attempting to retrieve a runaway umbrella caught in a gust of wind. He offered a hand, and together they managed to untangle it from a tree branch. She smiled, her relief tangible, yet quiet, and Bruce realized that courage was often shared, collaborative, and found in simple cooperation rather than dramatic heroics. Each gesture, each mindful intervention, left a subtle imprint on both giver and receiver, forming a delicate web of care and connection across the city. The boy paused in the middle of a quiet street, listening to the soft rhythm of footsteps, the gentle patter of rain, and the distant hum of the city. Every sound carried meaning, every movement suggested need or opportunity. Bruce understood that life was full of moments that required attentive awareness, patience, and subtle courage. The small, unnoticed acts were threads in the fabric of the city, weaving a tapestry of connection, empathy, and quiet heroism. Finally, Bruce returned to Wayne Manor, his steps slow, deliberate, and calm. The lessons of the evening, the tiny acts of courage, the quiet interventions, and the attentive observation of subtle needs settled into him like a gentle rhythm, reinforcing the principles of empathy, patience, and quiet strength he had been cultivating for years. Alfred was waiting, as always, steady, unobtrusive, and comforting, a witness to the boy's growing understanding of what it meant to act with care in the world. Sitting by the window, Bruce reflected on the evening. He thought of the boy with the books, the frightened dog, the shivering man, the tripped child, and the young woman with her umbrella. Each encounter had been brief, unnoticed by most, yet profoundly significant in shaping his understanding of courage. It was not about heroics or recognition. It was about noticing, acting thoughtfully, and offering calm support when needed. The rain continued to fall softly, a lullaby for the city, for Bruce, and for anyone who paused to listen. He felt the quiet satisfaction of having been present, aware, and gently engaged with the world. Each tiny act of courage, each moment of attentive care, left a mark, however small, on the tapestry of life. And Bruce, thoughtful, patient, and quietly growing, felt the subtle warmth of connection that these actions had fostered in both the world and himself. That night, as Bruce lay in bed, the memories of tiny acts of courage lingered in his mind like soft stars in a gentle sky. The city, full of hidden stories, unseen gestures, and quiet rhythms, pulsed gently beneath him. He drifted toward sleep, with the calm reassurance that heroism was not always loud or dramatic, but often quiet, subtle, and enduring. And somewhere beyond the walls of Wayne Manor, the city continued its rhythm, carrying with it the invisible threads of empathy, awareness, and courage that Bruce had learned to weave carefully into the fabric of his own life. Wayne Manor felt almost different at night. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, quiet and patient, as if it too were listening to the subtle rhythms of the world. Bruce moved carefully along the corridors, guided not by urgency but by the calm curiosity that had been growing steadily within him. Tonight, he had chosen to explore a part of the manor often overlooked: the old library, a room filled with shelves of books that seemed to stretch endlessly into shadowed corners. Before we begin, take a soft, deliberate breath with Bruce. Feel your body settle into stillness. Notice the gentle rhythm of your heartbeat, the slow, steady rise and fall of your chest. Imagine yourself moving quietly through a space of knowledge and reflection, where every page, every shelf, every quiet detail carries the possibility of gentle discovery. This chapter is a lullaby for the mind, a quiet invitation to explore curiosity and reflection in peace. Bruce pushed open the heavy wooden doors of the library, the faint creak echoing softly in the vast space. Dust motes floated in the slanting beams of moonlight that fell through tall windows, giving the room an ethereal, dreamlike quality. The shelves were lined with countless books, some ancient, leather-bound and worn, others newer, their spines bright with color. Each book seemed to whisper quietly, promising knowledge, stories, and subtle lessons. Waiting for someone patient enough to notice, Alfred appeared behind him, his presence calm and reassuring. "The library holds more than words, Master Bruce," he said softly. "It contains patterns of thought, echoes of insight, and quiet wisdom passed down through generations. You will find lessons here, not always in direct statements, but in the connections you make as you explore thoughtfully and with care." Bruce nodded, sensing the truth in Alfred's words. The library was a world in miniature, a place where attention, patience, and quiet reflection could cultivate understanding far beyond what the eye alone could see. Bruce wandered among the shelves, brushing his fingers gently across spines, feeling the texture of leather and cloth, and listening to the subtle whisper of pages shifting in the faint draft of the night. Each book he touched seemed to offer a story, not only of distant lands or ancient knowledge, but also of the minds and hearts of those who had written them. In these quiet interactions, he began to notice the interconnectedness of knowledge, curiosity, and personal growth. He selected a book at random, its pages yellowed with age and scenting faintly of dust and history. Settling into a soft leather chair by the window, Bruce opened it slowly, allowing the words to unfold in their gentle rhythm. The stories were not about grand heroics or loud adventure, but about ordinary lives, subtle choices, and the patient cultivation of understanding. He felt a quiet resonance with each narrative, recognizing in the characters' small insights and careful observations, a reflection of his own emerging awareness. Alfred moved quietly to a nearby table, setting down a pot of tea and a small cup. "Even the smallest story can teach profound lessons," he said softly. "In reading attentively, you learn not only from the text, but from the act of noticing, reflecting, and connecting." Bruce took a small sip, the warmth grounding him in the quiet of the library, and returned to his reading. Each passage seemed to echo lessons he had already begun to understand: patience, empathy, attentiveness, and the quiet strength found in subtle observation. The night deepened, and the shadows in the library grew longer and more intimate, curling around corners and shelves in gentle folds. Bruce moved through the stacks, letting his curiosity guide him, picking up books that caught his attention and setting aside those that did not. Each choice felt deliberate, yet effortless, a meditation on interest, intuition, and the quiet pleasures of discovery. He felt the joy of learning not as obligation or task, but as gentle exploration of ideas, emotions, and perspectives. One book in particular drew his attention, a collection of reflections on human behavior, empathy, and moral courage. Bruce read slowly, savoring each sentence, each carefully constructed idea. He realized that heroism, patience, and understanding could be cultivated not only through action, but through observation, reflection, and thoughtful engagement with knowledge. This understanding complemented what he had learned on the streets, on rooftops, and in the quiet attentiveness of shared meals and small acts of courage. Outside, the moon rose higher, casting silver light across the library floor. Bruce closed his eyes for a moment, letting the glow of moonlight blend with the quiet wisdom in the books around him. Each soft detail, the texture of paper, the faint scent of ink, the subtle echo of wind through the manor's corridors taught him something about the richness of perception, the quiet patience of learning, and the profound significance of small, attentive actions. Alfred's voice came again, soft as the rustle of pages. The library is a reflection of the mind, Master Bruce. Each book, each idea, each story contributes to your understanding of the world and of yourself. Pay attention not only to the words, but to the connections you feel, the insights that arise quietly, and the subtleties that speak to your own experiences. Bruce nodded, feeling the quiet weight of wisdom settle into his chest. The library was not merely a place of study. It was a sanctuary for reflection, growth, and gentle internal expansion. He explored further, discovering books on philosophy, history, art, and science, each offering small revelations about human nature, patience, and the delicate balance between observation and action. Bruce understood that knowledge alone was not power, but that thoughtful engagement with it, combined with careful reflection and emotional awareness, created the subtle strength he sought. He began to see the library as a mirror of himself, layered, quiet, full of small connections waiting to be discovered and integrated. A small rain began to patter against the windows, the sound mingling with the faint rustle of pages and the soft creak of the manor settling at night. Bruce felt a sense of calm settle over him, the rhythm of the rain echoing the gentle pulse of his own thoughts. Each droplet, each soft sound, reinforced the lesson that growth, understanding, and courage were cultivated slowly, patiently, and with careful attention. The quiet, unnoticed details of life, like the droplets on the glass, carried significance far beyond immediate perception. Bruce lingered in the library for hours, moving from shelf to shelf, allowing curiosity to guide him without urgency. Each discovery, each connection, was a meditation in itself, a quiet exploration of knowledge, empathy, and emotional depth. He realized that learning was not a race, but a process of gentle accumulation, where each insight, no matter how small, contributed to the richness of understanding and the subtle cultivation of inner strength. Finally, he selected a final book, one that contained reflections on courage, patience, and the power of quiet observation. Settling into the chair by the window, Bruce read the last pages slowly, savoring each phrase. The lessons of the city, of rooftops, shared sandwiches, tiny acts of courage, and reflective self-observation coalesced within him, forming a quiet, enduring understanding. The world was full of small acts, subtle knowledge, and gentle courage, and noticing them was itself a powerful, transformative practice. As the night wore on, Bruce closed the book and let himself lean back in the chair, eyes half closed, listening to the faint hum of the manor, the rhythm of rain, and the gentle echoes of the stories around him. He felt a calm satisfaction, a quiet assurance that growth, understanding, and patience were quietly shaping him. The Library of Night was not just a place of books. It was a place where awareness, reflection, and emotional depth could be nurtured, layer by layer, like the soft unfolding of a dream. Alfred moved quietly to stand nearby, a gentle presence, watching over the boy with unspoken care. "You are learning, Master Bruce, to combine observation, patience, and subtle action with knowledge, reflection, and emotional awareness. These lessons, gathered quietly, will prepare you for challenges and opportunities that cannot be faced with strength alone. Understanding, empathy, and quiet courage are your most enduring tools." Bruce nodded, feeling the soft warmth of the words settle into him. Finally, as the first pale light of dawn began to touch the windows, Bruce rose from his chair, carefully placing the book back on the shelf. He moved through the library one last time, noticing the soft shadows, the faint scent of paper, and the subtle play of light across the rows of books. Every detail seemed infused with gentle lessons, a reminder that the quiet cultivation of understanding and awareness was as meaningful as any dramatic action in the world outside. He returned to his room, carrying the calm assurance of the library within him, the lessons of observation, empathy, patience, and quiet courage, the lessons found in rooftops, kitchens, shared sandwiches, and small acts of kindness were now reinforced by the depth of reflection and knowledge he had absorbed. Bruce lay in bed, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat align with the soft pulse of the city, and drifted toward sleep with the quiet satisfaction of learning, growing, and quietly preparing for the journey that lay ahead. Somewhere in the silent streets of Gotham, the city moved with its hidden rhythms, carrying with it subtle lessons, quiet acts of courage, and small, enduring stories. And Bruce, patient, reflective, and quietly growing, rested in the calm knowledge that the Library of Night had added another layer to his understanding, layer of insight, empathy, and gentle awareness that would ripple through his life in ways both profound and enduring. The manor felt quieter than usual that morning, bathed in the soft gray light of early dawn. Bruce wandered through its familiar corridors, his footsteps slow, unhurried, each sound muted against the polished floors. He passed rooms that once held the echoes of childhood laughter, the faint residue of games played in hidden corners, and the lingering scent of warmth from days long past. The memories rose gently, not sharply or painfully, but like whispers from another time, soft, delicate, and filled with subtle lessons. Before we begin, take a deep, calming breath with Bruce. Let the quiet of your body and mind settle. Feel the soft rise and fall of your chest, and notice the gentle rhythm of your heartbeat. This chapter is a meditation on memory, reflection, and the tender echoes of childhood that shape who we are, guiding us with gentle hands toward understanding and calm. Bruce stopped by a window overlooking the garden, where the dew still clung to blades of grass and the petals of flowers, catching the first hesitant rays of sunlight. He remembered the child he had been, the small quirks, the quiet curiosity, the way he had noticed the emotions of those around him before he had the words to name them. Each memory surfaced with a gentle clarity, like ripples on a still pond, reflecting lessons that had long ago been absorbed. Even if unconsciously, Alfred's presence was a constant, comforting shadow at his side. "Memories, Master Bruce," he said softly, "are not merely recollections. They are reminders of the lessons learned, the love given and received, and the patterns of growth that shape who you are becoming." Bruce nodded, feeling the resonance of the words deepen the quiet reflection stirring within him. He understood that revisiting these echoes was not about nostalgia alone. It was about connecting the threads of his own life, tracing the subtle lines of care, empathy, and quiet courage that had been forming since childhood. He wandered into the small playroom tucked behind the library. Dust motes floated lazily in the shafts of light that fell through the tall windows. The toys, once scattered with laughter and imagination, lay in gentle disarray, each one a quiet reminder of a younger self, curious, observant, patient, and aware of small details that others might overlook. Bruce touched the edge of a small wooden train, remembering the hours spent carefully constructing tracks and observing the miniature journeys of his tiny passengers. Each memory carried a lesson in patience, attentiveness, and quiet care. Sitting on the floor, he let himself drift into the echoes of childhood conversations, long forgotten but quietly influential. He remembered words spoken softly by Alfred, by his parents, and by the fleeting friendships that had brushed against his young life. Some had been confusing at the time, others comforting, but all had contributed to the quiet development of his empathy, awareness, and emotional depth. The echoes were gentle, carrying neither urgency nor sorrow, only the measured unfolding of insight over time. Bruce thought of the nights when he had sat by the window, watching the city beneath him, feeling a strange combination of curiosity and responsibility stir within his chest. Even as a child, he had noticed the subtle rhythms of life, the quiet gestures of strangers, the faint signs of joy or sorrow hidden in everyday movements. These observations, once fleeting and unremarkable, now seemed like the foundation of understanding that would guide him through the rest of his life. The faint scent of rain carried through the open window, mingling with the soft warmth of the room. Bruce leaned back, listening to the gentle patter, letting it blend with his memories. Rain had always been a lullaby, a steady rhythm that encouraged reflection and calm. He thought of afternoons spent listening to droplets on the roof, observing their subtle patterns, and feeling the quiet reassurance of continuity and stability in a world that often seemed unpredictable. Alfred joined him quietly, settling into a nearby chair. "It is important, Master Bruce, to revisit these moments, not to dwell, but to recognize the strength and understanding they have already gifted you. The echoes of childhood are threads woven into the fabric of your present self. By noticing them, you strengthen the awareness and empathy that will guide your actions in the years to come." Bruce nodded slowly, absorbing the wisdom and feeling the warmth of presence that accompanied Alfred's gentle guidance. He closed his eyes and let the memories wash over him, the small triumphs, the quiet disappointments, the fleeting joys, and the gentle lessons learned from mistakes and misunderstandings. He remembered comforting a sibling who had fallen, offering a hand without speaking, noticing a teacher's quiet fatigue and offering a soft smile, and even the moments of personal struggle when patience and observation were the only tools available. Each memory was subtle, almost invisible, yet profoundly formative. Bruce opened his eyes and looked around the playroom once more. The toys, the faint marks on the walls, and the small, familiar objects, each carried a lesson. That growth came slowly, quietly, and often without recognition. He understood that heroism, empathy, and courage were not always loud or dramatic, but frequently hidden in the patience of learning, the attention to detail, and the gentle acts that go unnoticed by most. A soft breeze stirred the curtains, and Bruce felt a sense of calm settle over him. He thought of the city beyond the manor, the rooftops, the streets, the people whose stories he had quietly witnessed and occasionally influenced through small acts of care. The echoes of childhood had prepared him to recognize need, respond with empathy, and act with a subtle courage that was both powerful and enduring, though rarely visible. He walked slowly through the hallways, pausing at the doors of rooms that held fragments of early life. Each space seemed to whisper a story, reminding him that his growth had been guided not only by external instruction, but by the accumulation of small experiences, repeated gestures, and attentive observation. Even the quiet moments of solitude had been fertile ground for understanding, reflection, and the development of patience. Bruce paused before a mirror, noting the subtle lines of growth, the careful awareness reflected in his gaze. He remembered the small boy who had once watched the city from high windows, curious, observant, and patient. That boy had carried lessons in empathy, attentiveness, and quiet courage into the present, forming the foundation of the young man he was becoming. The reflection in the glass was not just an image of appearance. It was a tapestry of experiences, memories, and carefully nurtured qualities. Alfred's soft voice broke the quiet, gentle as the wind through the manor. Childhood is not merely a period of time, Master Bruce. It is a reservoir of understanding, a source of patience, and a wellspring of subtle strength. By remembering and honoring these echoes, you carry forward the lessons that will sustain you through every challenge, every choice, and every moment of quiet courage. Bruce felt the words settle in his chest, mingling with the warmth of memory and the calm assurance that reflection offered. He sat by the window once more, gazing at the dew-kissed garden, the first light of dawn glimmering across petals and leaves. The echoes of childhood, soft, deliberate, and unassuming, were a gentle reminder that strength was built over time, patience was learned slowly, and empathy was cultivated in the quiet attention to the world and people around him. Each memory carried a lesson, and each lesson became a building block in the structure of quiet heroism he was forming within himself. Bruce allowed himself to linger in the stillness, letting the gentle rhythm of his breathing align with the subtle pulse of the world outside. The city would awaken soon, and life would continue with its unnoticed gestures, quiet acts, and hidden rhythms. But for now, in the calm of the manor, Bruce felt the enduring presence of those early lessons, echoes of laughter, small acts of care, and moments of awareness that had quietly shaped his heart and mind. As the morning light grew stronger, Bruce rose slowly, carrying with him the serenity of reflection. He understood that revisiting these echoes was not nostalgia alone, but a deliberate engagement with the foundation of empathy, attentiveness, and courage that would guide him into adolescence and beyond. Each memory was a gentle reinforcement, each reflection a quiet affirmation of the subtle heroism that had always been forming, hidden in patience, observation, and care. That night, as he lay in bed, Bruce let the echoes of childhood drift through his mind like soft, shimmering stars. He felt the reassurance that growth was continuous, subtle, and enduring. The memories of small kindnesses, gentle lessons, and attentive observation were threads woven into his being, quietly shaping his understanding of the world, his place within it, and the quiet, patient courage that would guide his actions. Somewhere in Gotham, the city moved with its hidden rhythms, carrying unnoticed gestures, subtle acts of care, and quiet stories of human connection. And Bruce, patient, reflective, and deeply aware, rested in the calm understanding that these echoes of childhood were not distant relics, but living, enduring guides that would continue to shape him through every quiet moment, every subtle act, and every gentle choice he made in the world. The manor was quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the night to unfold its soft secrets. Bruce sat by the fireplace in the library, the last embers of a dying fire casting a gentle glow across the room. Alfred settled into the armchair opposite him, a small teacup cradled in his hands. The night stretched quietly around them, the world beyond the windows cloaked in stillness, inviting reflection, warmth, and the gentle unfolding of stories. Before we begin, take a slow, intentional breath with Bruce. Feel the calm settle in your body. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your chest, and imagine the soft glow of a quiet fire warming your thoughts. Tonight's story is not about action or spectacle. It is about the enduring wisdom of shared moments, the gentle transmission of understanding, and the quiet magic of a mentor's voice guiding the heart. Alfred spoke first, his tone soft, deliberate, and inviting. "There are stories that the night carries, Master Bruce," he said. "Stories of patience, courage, and quiet acts of understanding. They do not shout their importance, yet their lessons linger long after the tale ends." Bruce leaned back, attentive. feeling the comfort of Alfred's presence, the warmth of the fire, and the gentle hush of midnight surrounding them. The library became a sacred space, a haven for listening, learning, and quiet contemplation. The first story Alfred told was of a small village that existed on the edge of a river. The villagers faced many subtle challenges, not storms that swept houses away, nor battles that demanded swords, but small, persistent trials of patience and care. Each villager contributed in quiet, almost invisible ways, tending to plants with careful attention, noticing when a neighbor needed a word of comfort, or guiding the young and old with gentle support. Bruce felt the resonance of the story in his chest, recognizing the reflections of small acts of courage and empathy. He had already begun to practice in Gotham. Alfred's voice was steady, like a soft current flowing through the room, guiding attention without urgency. The village thrived, not because of grand feats or displays of strength, but because each person learned to see, to listen, and to respond with care. Courage was measured not in battles won, but in the attentiveness to need and the patience to act without recognition. Bruce's eyes followed the flickering firelight, noticing how the shadows danced across the walls, as if affirming the quiet truth of Alfred's words. The second story was of a young musician who had lost the ability to hear with clarity. At first it seemed devastating, but over time, the musician discovered that quiet observation, gentle focus, and the patient listening of others opened new ways to understand music, sound, and rhythm. Alfred's words highlighted the subtle power of adaptation. Sometimes, the greatest lessons come not from the skills we possess, but from the patience to observe, to learn anew, and to embrace what seems like limitation as a doorway to insight. Bruce felt a quiet thrill of understanding. The story was a reminder that growth often came through attention, patience, and the willingness to engage with the world in unexpected ways. As the night deepened, the soft patter of rain began against the windows, blending with Alfred's words to create a gentle lullaby of reflection. Bruce listened, absorbing not just the stories themselves, but the cadence of storytelling, the deliberate pauses, the careful attention to detail, the warm human connection that transcended the tales and settled into the listener's heart. The mentor's presence was a reminder that wisdom is often carried in subtle gestures, measured tones, and patient, enduring companionship. Alfred's third story was quieter, more personal. It was of a young boy, not unlike Bruce, who had wandered through shadowed streets and silent alleys, noticing the subtle sorrows, joys, and curiosities of life. This boy had learned that true courage and understanding were cultivated not in loud declarations, but in attentive observation, thoughtful intervention, and the gentle offering of care when it was needed most. Bruce felt a soft resonance as he recognized himself in the tale, his own rooftop wanderings, small acts of courage, and the delicate attentiveness he had begun to practice. The boy in the story, Alfred continued, learned that the world is composed of quiet, often invisible threads. By noticing them, by attending to the small needs, and by acting with subtle care, he wove a fabric of connection that sustained him and those around him. These are the lessons that will follow you, Master Bruce, if you choose to observe and act with patience and empathy. Bruce nodded slowly, feeling the weight and warmth of the truth in those words. He reflected on the stories of the night, on the small village, the young musician, and the attentive boy. Each tale carried a subtle instruction: notice, listen, respond, and care. Heroism did not always manifest in dramatic gestures or visible victories. Sometimes it existed in quiet patience, the soft extension of support, and the careful cultivation of empathy. Bruce understood, with a profound clarity, that these were the tools he had been gathering since childhood, the foundation of the quiet hero he was becoming. The fire crackled softly, sending faint sparks dancing across the room. Bruce allowed himself to sit with the calm resonance of Alfred's stories, noticing the warmth of the room, the gentle rhythm of the rain, and the reassuring presence of a mentor whose care and patience had quietly guided him for years. He realized that wisdom, like courage, could be subtle, layered, and enduring, shaping understanding and action through reflection, observation, and shared insight. Alfred paused, allowing the silence to settle like a soft blanket over the library. "Stories, Master Bruce," he said softly, "are not merely entertainment. They are tools for understanding, for growth, and for cultivating the quiet strength that will sustain you when the world feels heavy. Remember the lessons, not only in words but in the spaces between, in the pauses, in the small gestures that speak louder than speech." Bruce absorbed the meaning of this, sensing the gentle expansion of insight, the layering of reflection and emotional depth that Alfred's tales had inspired. He thought back to the small acts of courage he had practiced on the streets, the boy with the books, the frightened dog, the shivering man, and recognized how each story mirrored those experiences in metaphorical form. The city, like the village, like the musician, required patience, careful attention, and a willingness to engage thoughtfully and empathy. And just as Alfred's voice carried the lessons, Bruce's own quiet actions began to carry them outward, rippling gently through the world without fanfare, recognition, or urgency. The rain continued to patter softly against the windows, mingling with the faint hum of the city beyond. Bruce closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the cadence of Alfred's voice and the rhythm of the night to settle into him. He felt a deep, reflective calm, a quiet wonder at the subtle ways in which guidance, attention, and small acts of care could shape a life. These stories were more than words. They were quiet threads woven into the fabric of his understanding, shaping empathy, patience, and subtle courage into habits that would endure far beyond the night. Alfred's final story was the briefest, yet perhaps the most profound. It was of a garden hidden behind high walls, nurtured patiently over years. Each seed, each blade of grass, each drop of water mattered, even if unnoticed by others. The garden flourished not through force, but through attentive care, quiet observation, and consistent, gentle action. Bruce felt the parallel immediately: the city, the people he observed, and even his own development as a young man were gardens in need of subtle attention and thoughtful cultivation. The world, Master Bruce, Alfred concluded softly, responds to the care we invest, the attention we give, and the patience we cultivate. Remember that growth is slow, courage often quiet, and understanding deep. In these stories, in the small acts and subtle insights, you will find the tools to navigate life with care, awareness, and quiet strength. Bruce nodded, the warmth of understanding settling into him, like embers glowing long after the fire had dimmed. The night had deepened fully by then. The rain softened into a gentle whisper, and the city outside was still, pulsing with unseen rhythms. Bruce rose, carrying the quiet resonance of stories, the soft weight of wisdom, and the calm assurance that he was not alone in his journey. Alfred's mentorship, embodied in these midnight tales, was a subtle, enduring gift, guiding him with patience, care, and deep emotional resonance. As Bruce lay in bed that night, he let the stories drift through his mind, mingling with his own reflections, memories, and small acts of courage. The lessons of attentive observation, subtle empathy, and quiet heroism settled around him like a soft cloak, comforting, reassuring, and infinitely patient. Somewhere beyond the walls of Wayne Manor, the city breathed, full of invisible gestures, unnoticed acts, and the soft potential for kindness and courage. And Bruce, thoughtful, reflective, and quietly growing, drifted toward sleep with the assurance that these stories, like the gentle guidance of Alfred, would continue to shape him long after the night had ended. The morning sun filtered gently through the tall windows of Wayne Manor, painting soft streaks of gold across the library floor. Bruce stood in the quiet room, feeling the warmth of the light touch his skin, noticing how the gentle glow seemed to reach into corners long untouched by attention. Today was not about grand gestures or urgent action. It was about motion, awareness, and the deliberate unfolding of quiet strength, stretching toward the light in all senses, both literal and metaphorical. Before we begin, take a slow, grounding breath with Bruce. Let your body settle into the stillness. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, and imagine your mind as a space of calm openness. This chapter is a meditation on growth, adaptability, and the subtle power of moving toward understanding, light, and empathy, one quiet step at a time. Bruce moved slowly across the floor, stretching his arms upward, feeling the pull in his shoulders, the gentle extension of muscles that had long been dormant in moments of stillness. It was a simple gesture, yet profoundly symbolic. Each stretch reminded him of the growth he had experienced not through force or drama, but through patience, attentiveness, and the deliberate practice of extending himself, both physically and emotionally. Alfred entered quietly, a soft smile on his face. Stretching, Master Bruce, is not merely a physical act. It mirrors the way you reach toward understanding, empathy, and subtle courage. Every deliberate movement can reinforce awareness and strengthen resilience. Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the words as he continued to extend his body, bending gently, reaching higher, and observing the sensations that accompanied each motion. The exercise became meditative. Each movement was deliberate, each pause measured, like the careful unfolding of a quiet ritual. Bruce imagined that with every stretch, he was not only moving his body, but also extending his awareness, reaching toward the needs of others, the subtleties of the world around him, and the deeper layers of his own mind. It was a form of training not for conflict, but for attentiveness, adaptability, and soft strength. Outside the windows, the city began to stir. The streets of Gotham held their usual rhythms, the faint hum of distant traffic, the occasional clatter of shutters, and the muted conversations of early risers. Bruce allowed himself to notice these sounds, integrating them into the gentle flow of his practice. Just as he stretched physically, he reached toward understanding the patterns of life around him, the rhythms, the moods, and the small gestures of unseen people shaping the world quietly. Alfred approached, placing a hand gently on Bruce's shoulder to guide him into a slow, deliberate bend. Stretching is a lesson in patience as much as strength. Do not rush. Notice each sensation, each alignment, each moment of subtle resistance. Life often asks us to extend ourselves in ways that require attentiveness, gentle persistence, and the willingness to grow slowly. Bruce felt the warmth of Alfred's guidance, a tangible presence anchoring him as he continued, letting the motions become a quiet dance of reflection and understanding. Bruce imagined the city as an extension of this practice. Each alley, each rooftop, each flicker of light or shadow was like a point to stretch toward an invitation to observe, to respond, and to connect with the hidden threads that wove the lives of others together. Just as his body lengthened and bent with patience, his mind reached toward empathy, awareness, and the quiet courage to act in subtle, meaningful ways. He paused, arms extended above his head, and felt the gentle pull of gravity grounding him. The sensation reminded him that growth was not only upward or outward. It required balance, support, and an understanding of the forces at play. In this simple posture, Bruce recognized the metaphor of life itself. To grow, one must reach toward the light, but also remain rooted, attentive, and steady amidst unseen currents. Alfred spoke again, softly, guiding Bruce into another gentle stretch. Adaptability, Master Bruce, is cultivated not by resisting the world, but by moving with it, noticing its subtle rhythms, and aligning oneself thoughtfully. Each stretch, each careful motion, mirrors the flexibility needed in life to respond, to understand, and to offer help when required. Bruce closed his eyes briefly, letting the words settle and the movements echo within him, a quiet meditation on the interconnectedness of body, mind, and the rhythms of the world. He transitioned into a sequence of movements, each deliberate, fluid, and mindful. He reached toward the corners of the room, imagining that each extension was a bridge to unseen needs, subtle patterns, and quiet truths in the world beyond the manor. Every stretch, bend, and turn was an act of attentiveness, a practice in subtle awareness that strengthened both body and spirit. The sunlight shifted, casting long shadows that danced across the polished floors. Bruce noticed them, not as distractions, but as companions to his practice. Shadows reminded him of the duality of light and darkness, presence and absence, action and reflection. In the balance of these contrasts, he felt the quiet resonance of understanding that growth was nuanced, gentle, and layered. A small bell chimed from somewhere in the manor, its sound soft and deliberate, marking the passage of time without urgency. Bruce moved in response to the rhythm, letting the auditory cue guide a slower, deeper extension. With each motion, he felt the awareness in his body deepen, the subtle strength in his arms and legs integrate with the attentiveness forming in his mind. This practice was not merely physical, it was a cultivation of readiness, empathy, and soft courage that would manifest in everyday life and in the quiet interventions that made a profound difference. Alfred moved to the window, observing Bruce's quiet, deliberate motions. The world often asks for more than we realize, not in loud declarations, but in small, meaningful engagements. Stretching, reaching, and moving with awareness are reminders that we are capable of adapting, responding, and offering care without fanfare. These lessons will guide you, Master Bruce, in ways both subtle and profound. Bruce felt the warmth of the words resonate deeply, integrating with the gentle rhythm of motion, light, and breath. As the morning progressed, Bruce transitioned to floor stretches, noticing the gentle pull along his back, legs, and core. Each position demanded patience, awareness, and careful adjustment, reinforcing the principle that growth, physical, emotional, or moral, required attention and deliberate care. Just as he adjusted his posture to find balance and ease, so too could he adjust his responses to others. Learning subtle empathy and mindful action, he imagined extending not only toward light, but toward others the quiet encouragement of a child, the relief of someone aided with gentle attentiveness, the reassurance of presence in moments of uncertainty. Each stretch, each careful motion, became symbolic, an echo of the lessons Alfred had imparted through stories and shared moments. Stretching toward the light was stretching toward awareness, patience, and subtle courage. The rain that began to fall outside added a soothing rhythm to the practice. Its soft tapping on the windows blended with the quiet motion, reinforcing the meditative pace. Bruce let the sound guide his breath, inhaling deeply, exhaling fully, and coordinating each stretch with the calm, persistent rhythm of the droplets. The rain became a lullaby, a soft reminder that growth was continuous, gentle, and interconnected with the environment and the lives around him. Finally, Bruce paused, standing tall with arms raised, letting the energy of movement settle into him. He felt a quiet satisfaction, a gentle assurance that every deliberate motion, every extension toward the light, had strengthened not only his body, but his mind, awareness, and emotional presence. Adaptability, empathy, and soft courage were not abstract ideals. They were cultivated through consistent, patient practice, reflected in small gestures, deliberate attention, and careful movement. He lowered his arms slowly, breathing in the calm warmth of the room, noticing the soft glow of sunlight on the floor and the gentle hum of life beginning beyond the manor walls. Bruce understood that stretching toward the light was not a singular act, but a continuous practice, a way of engaging with the world, noticing need, responding thoughtfully, and cultivating quiet strength that endured beyond immediate perception. That evening, as Bruce lay in bed, the lessons of the day, attention, adaptability, patience, and quiet courage settled within him. Stretching, he realized, was a metaphor for life, the deliberate effort to extend, to notice, to reach toward understanding and care, while remaining grounded in observation, patience, and emotional awareness. Somewhere in Gotham, unnoticed gestures, quiet acts, and small interventions were weaving gentle patterns of connection, and Bruce, thoughtful, reflective, and quietly growing, drifted toward sleep with the calm reassurance that stretching toward the light, both within and beyond, was a practice that would guide him always. The streets of Gotham lay quiet beneath the evening sky, soft shadows stretching across cobblestones and alleyways. Bruce moved with a careful awareness, attuned not only to the city's rhythms but to the subtle currents of emotion that moved through the people he passed. There was a delicate weight to understanding others. He realized a quiet attentiveness required to hear beyond words, to sense the emotions beneath, and to respond with gentle care. Before we begin, take a slow, steady breath with Bruce. Let your body settle. Feel the calm pulse of your heartbeat, and imagine the soft awareness of being present with someone, listening not just to their words, but to the quiet resonance of their heart. This chapter is a meditation on empathy, subtle connection, and the quiet beauty of relationships that shape us through observation, care, and reflection. Alfred's voice echoed softly in memory, though he was just beside him on the quiet streets. Master Bruce, sometimes words tell only a fraction of the story. The heart speaks more clearly if you take the time to notice. Bruce nodded, recalling countless moments when understanding required patience, observation, and attentiveness. Not all lessons were learned from books or practice. Some were learned in the subtle interplay of emotion, body language, and quiet gestures of care. Bruce approached the small courtyard behind Wayne Manor, where Selina Kyle had once waited quietly during a rare, shared respite. Her presence had always been a mixture of mystery and warmth. Her words, sometimes cryptic, sometimes playful, yet always carrying layers of meaning that required patience to interpret. He remembered times when he had struggled to understand her, moments when her tone, or choice of words, had eluded him entirely, yet her intentions, her heart, were never lost to him. He recalled the night when a single smile, unspoken yet luminous, had revealed more than 1,000 words ever could. He had not understood her fully, not in that moment, yet he had understood enough. She sought connection, recognition, and shared trust, and he had responded with gentle attention. Bruce realized that understanding was not always immediate. It was cultivated in patience, observation, and the willingness to meet another where they were. The courtyard held the faint scent of damp earth, a whisper of rain from earlier in the evening. Bruce let the aroma ground him, connecting the memory with the present. He imagined the city beyond, full of lives moving in silent complexity, each person communicating in subtle ways that demanded careful attention to hear. Just as he had learned to observe the rhythm of Gotham, he had learned to observe the rhythm of hearts, the pauses, the hesitations, the glimmers of unspoken meaning. Alfred's guidance had always been present, gentle yet steady, encouraging reflection rather than judgment. Empathy, Master Bruce, Alfred had said, is cultivated in moments of quiet observation and deliberate attention. We do not need to understand every word, but we must notice intention, effort, and the emotions beneath. Bruce recalled how these lessons had grown into instinctual awareness and ability to sense what others needed before they could articulate it themselves. He remembered small, ordinary acts that had carried immense meaning, offering a coat to a child shivering in the alley, listening patiently to someone recount a worry without interruption, or simply remaining present with a person in silence. These gestures were subtle, unnoticed by the majority, yet profoundly transformative. In each instance, understanding did not require complete comprehension, only attentive, caring presence. That evening, Bruce sat quietly on a stone bench, gazing at the soft glow of lanterns lining the courtyard. He let the memory of Selina and others flow through him, not in longing or frustration, but in gentle reflection. The city hummed softly beyond the walls, and he felt a subtle connection with lives intertwined through quiet gestures, unspoken understanding, and patience. Each interaction, he realized, was a thread weaving the fabric of human connection. He thought of his parents and the times he had struggled to comprehend their intentions fully, yet had felt the warmth of their care, the resonance of their hearts. The echoes of those moments lingered, shaping his understanding of love, attention, and subtle communication. Bruce understood that relationships deep, meaningful, and enduring were built not on perfect comprehension, but on patient observation, trust, and empathy. Alfred approached, settling beside him on the bench. The soft rustle of fabric, a quiet punctuation in the still night. Master Bruce, it is not necessary to grasp every nuance. What matters is presence, attentiveness, and the willingness to respond with care. Sometimes, just noticing that someone exists, that they are seen, is the most profound understanding of all. Bruce nodded, feeling the resonance of these words settle within him. It was a lesson in quiet heroism, one learned, not in action, but in attentive care. The night deepened, the sky above a canvas of soft indigo, stars peeking through the veil of urban haze. Bruce closed his eyes for a moment, letting the quiet of the city, the subtle warmth of Alfred's presence, and the gentle echo of past interactions envelop him. He thought of the people whose hearts he had noticed, whose intentions he had discerned, and whose presence had taught him patience, empathy, and the quiet courage to respond with kindness. Even when comprehension was partial, he imagined himself walking through the streets of Gotham, moving with attentiveness, noticing subtle signs of need or hesitation, and responding in small, meaningful ways. The city, with all its hidden currents, became a space of gentle connection, where understanding was not always verbal, but profoundly emotional and perceptive. Bruce realized that heroism was not measured by recognition or spectacle, but by consistent, attentive engagement with others, listening, noticing, and caring quietly. The rain returned softly, tapping on the cobblestones, mingling with the muted hum of the city. Bruce allowed the rhythm to anchor him, coordinating his awareness with the gentle cadence of the droplets. Just as each drop nourished the earth silently, each small act of attention and empathy nourished the lives around him. The city's heartbeat intertwined with his own, a quiet, steady pulse that resonated with understanding, patience, and soft courage. Bruce rose from the bench, moving slowly through the courtyard, letting his attention sweep over the familiar spaces. The soft glow of lanterns reflected on the damp stone, creating patterns that reminded him of the subtle beauty in unnoticed gestures. Each shadow, each flicker of movement, was a lesson in observation and understanding, a reminder that even when words were unclear, the heart could still be seen, sensed, and responded to with gentle care. He thought again of Selina, of Alfred, of friends, strangers, and quiet companions whose hearts had taught him lessons not through explicit language, but through presence, intention, and subtle gestures. Each interaction, each unspoken communication, contributed to his growing understanding of empathy, courage, and emotional resilience. Bruce felt a calm assurance, a quiet wonder at the depth of human connection, and a readiness to meet the world with attentive care. As he returned to Wayne Manor, the city around him whispered softly, a lullaby of light, shadow, and quiet life. Bruce entered the manor, feeling the warmth of home, the gentle presence of Alfred, and the enduring lessons of patient observation. He understood that relationships were not perfect, comprehension was often partial, and yet the heart could always be noticed, acknowledged, and cared for. with quiet courage. That night, as Bruce lay in bed, the echoes of unspoken words and subtle gestures flowed gently through his mind. He reflected on the patience required to notice the heart behind the words, the attentiveness to see intention, and the quiet courage to act with empathy even when understanding was incomplete. Somewhere in Gotham, the city moved in unseen rhythms, full of lives intertwined through small acts of care, attentiveness, and the gentle presence of those willing to observe. Bruce let the warmth of understanding settle into him, a quiet cloak of empathy, patience, and emotional awareness. He drifted toward sleep with the assurance that even without complete comprehension, relationships could endure, grow, and nurture subtle heroism. And in the silent streets beyond, Wayne Manor, unseen gestures, soft intentions, and gentle acts of care continued to ripple quietly through the city, connecting lives, hearts, and moments of understanding. The city slept beneath a gentle veil of night, and Bruce stood atop one of Gotham's quiet rooftops, feeling the soft wind tug at his coat and whisper through his hair. Below him, the streets were calm, illuminated by scattered pools of lamplight, and punctuated by the faint rustle of unseen movement. Above, the stars shone through breaks in the clouds, faintly twinkling against the deep indigo sky. It was a quiet, almost sacred moment to space where the city, the stars, and his own mind converged in stillness. Before we begin, take a slow, grounding breath with Bruce. Let your body feel supported by the earth, your chest rise and fall with calm steadiness, and imagine the vastness of the sky above. This chapter is a meditation on wonder, perspective, and the quiet awe that comes from pausing to notice the beauty and subtle rhythm of the world. Around us, Bruce leaned slightly against the rooftop's low wall, letting his eyes wander across the urban landscape. The city appeared both vast and intimate, each street, each rooftop, each shadowed alley a testament to countless unseen lives. He felt the faint pulse of connection running through it, the subtle interplay of light and shadow, movement and stillness, noise and quiet. Gotham was alive, not in chaos, but in soft, persistent rhythms, and Bruce found comfort in observing them without the need to intervene. Alfred's voice came to him, gentle as always, in memory and presence. The world is full of patterns, Master Bruce. Sometimes we need only to notice, to reflect, and to allow wonder to take root in our hearts. Even when action is not required, understanding grows when we pause. Bruce inhaled deeply, feeling the wind brush his face, letting the words settle into the quiet spaces within him. Observation itself, he realized, could be an act of care. He gazed upward at the sky, tracing the faint outlines of constellations obscured partially by the city's glow. Each star seemed to hold a whisper of memory, a gentle reflection of lives, choices, and moments of quiet heroism. Bruce thought of his own journey's small acts of courage, subtle empathy, and attentive observation that had shaped him gradually over years. Like the stars, these moments often went unseen by the world, yet their presence mattered profoundly. The rooftops around him held echoes of past footsteps, fleeting memories of encounters, and traces of the city's life. He remembered the small acts he had witnessed: the man returning a dropped bag to its owner, the child waving at a passing pedestrian, the quiet gestures of connection that rarely registered but created invisible threads of care. Each observation added depth to his understanding of the world, and reminded him that even unnoticed kindness held great weight. Bruce shifted, sitting cross-legged on the stone surface, allowing his thoughts to drift like the clouds above. The wind whispered softly, carrying scents of rain from earlier in the evening, the faint aroma of baked bread from a nearby window, and the subtle perfume of nighttime flora from hidden gardens. Each sensation grounded him in the present, creating a sensory awareness that enhanced the calm, reflective mood of the rooftop. He thought of Alfred's guidance, and the midnight stories that had illuminated quiet truths, patience, empathy, and subtle courage had been recurring themes. Lessons embedded in narrative form to shape his understanding. Now, under the stars, these lessons felt alive in the context of the city itself. Each light, shadow, and movement seemed to echo those teachings, reinforcing that observation and reflection were forms of quiet engagement with the world. Bruce allowed his mind to wander further, contemplating the impermanence of moments, the fleeting nature of time, and the gentle weight of memory. Each star, each lamplight, each whisper of wind seemed like a fragment of countless narratives, overlapping and intersecting. The world, he realized, was composed of countless small stories, each carrying the potential for connection, understanding, and gentle courage. A soft breeze lifted, rustling his coat and whispering against his ears. Bruce closed his eyes, letting the sensation remind him of the subtle ways the world communicates through sound, movement, and presence rather than words alone. Just as he had learned to read the emotions of people, he now attuned himself to the rhythms of the city and the quiet guidance of natural forces. Observation, patience, and reflection became a symphony of understanding. Subtle and profound, he recalled small lessons from childhood raindrops falling softly on windows, shadows cast by candlelight, and the quiet guidance of Alfred in simple gestures of care. These moments, though unremarkable at the time, had layered themselves into his perception, teaching him that wonder, attentiveness, and empathy were cultivated through gentle, repeated engagement with the world. The stars above mirrored these lessons, distant yet luminous, subtle yet constant. Bruce's thoughts drifted to the people he had met along his journey, the few whose hearts he had glimpsed beneath words, actions, and silence. Each interaction had taught him patience, subtle courage, and the power of quiet presence. He realized that these connections, though sometimes small or fleeting, formed a network of emotional resonance, threading through his life and grounding his understanding of the world. He imagined the city from above, each rooftop and street carrying stories and unseen acts of care. Gotham, with all its shadows, lights, and silent moments, was not defined by chaos alone but by the gentle persistence of human connection. Bruce felt a quiet awe, recognizing that heroism often manifested in subtle attentiveness rather than dramatic intervention. Like the stars, these moments might be small and distant, yet they illuminated the larger landscape of human experience. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of smoke from a chimney, mingling with the cool night air. Bruce breathed deeply, feeling the subtle layering of the city's sensory presence settle within him. He noted how each element, the sounds, scents, lights, and shadows interacted with his awareness, deepening his reflection and enhancing the meditative quality of the night. Observation, he realized, was itself a form of empathy, a way to connect with life without interference or expectation. He remembered lessons from recent nights, stretching toward the light, listening for unspoken needs, and responding with subtle care. The rooftop offered a similar lesson. Presence and reflection mattered more than action. By simply observing, feeling, and acknowledging the patterns of life, he contributed quietly to understanding, empathy, and connection. Sometimes, heroism was silent, patient, and reflective, echoing in ways that were not immediately seen but deeply felt. Bruce shifted slightly, feeling the cool stone beneath him and the wind brushing against his skin. He imagined the stories carried in each light, shadow, and whisper of the city. Each unremarkable moment contained the potential for understanding, patience, and gentle intervention. Like constellations tracing invisible lines across the night sky, these threads connected people, moments, and choices in subtle, enduring patterns. Alfred's voice floated into memory once again. Master Bruce, wonder and understanding do not require spectacle. They grow quietly, persistently, in the small moments we take to notice, reflect, and care. The world rewards those who observe, even when recognition is absent. Bruce felt the truth of these words resonate with the stillness of the rooftop and the city below, embedding itself in the rhythm of his awareness. The stars above shimmered faintly, distant yet constant, a quiet affirmation that even small acts, subtle insights, and gentle attention matter. Bruce allowed himself to sit in awe, not of grandeur, but of the soft, enduring patterns of life, human connection, and quiet heroism. He recognized that, being present, patient, and reflective was itself a form of action, one that rippled gently through the city without demand for acknowledgement or reward. As the night deepened further, Bruce rose slowly, stretching his arms toward the sky. He felt a sense of expansive calm, an awareness of the interconnectedness of lives, moments, and choices. The stars mirrored the quiet persistence of subtle acts, while the city below reminded him of the delicate beauty hidden in everyday gestures. Observation, reflection, and gentle awareness were tools of understanding, empathy, and quiet courage. Finally, Bruce descended from the rooftop, leaving the stars above and the quiet city beneath as companions to his thoughts. He returned to Wayne Manor with a sense of calm, wonder, and readiness, ready to carry the lessons of observation, empathy, and quiet heroism into the days and nights ahead. The city, like the stars, continued its subtle dance of light, shadow, and unspoken stories, quietly shaping lives with gestures both small and profound. That night, as Bruce lay in bed, he let the reflection of the stars, the quiet rhythm of the city, and the memory of gentle guidance flow through him. He felt a soft awe, an emotional resonance with the world, and a calm reassurance that quiet heroism, observation, and empathy were powerful tools that shaped the world in subtle, enduring ways. Somewhere in Gotham, the city breathed, moved, and whispered, and Bruce, thoughtful, reflective, and quietly growing, drifted toward sleep with the knowledge that the stars above, like small acts of care, quietly illuminated the lives around him. The morning light spilled quietly across Wayne Manor, gentle and forgiving, brushing the familiar corners with warmth. Bruce walked slowly through the halls, his footsteps soft on the polished floors, each echo a gentle reminder of memories that lingered here. The house seemed to breathe alongside him, every creak and whisper carrying fragments of laughter, quiet conversations, and the faint aroma of tea left on a table long ago. Today, there was no urgency, no pressing need to act, only the tender unfolding of reflection and the quiet release of old weight. Before we begin, take a slow, intentional breath with Bruce. Feel the calm settle across your shoulders, the soft pulse of your heartbeat, and imagine the gentle light of morning filling the spaces within you. This chapter is a meditation on letting go, embracing peace, and offering gentle farewells to regrets, memories, and the parts of ourselves that we carry lightly but firmly. Bruce paused at the foot of the staircase, his gaze drawn to a small photograph resting on the mantel, a moment captured in stillness. The faces of his parents, smiling, tender, and bright, yet forever distant. He did not feel sorrow here, nor sharp longing. Instead, there was an almost sacred calm, a recognition that their presence had shaped him, and that part of him existed as a quiet echo of their love. He allowed the thought to linger, neither clinging nor resisting, simply observing the warmth it brought. Alfred appeared quietly, placing a hand on Bruce's shoulder. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "today is a day for small farewells, for acknowledging what has passed, and for letting it settle gently into memory. Closure is not about erasing the past, but embracing its presence without heaviness." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the words. The soft guidance of Alfred's voice was a steady anchor in the currents of reflection, allowing him to move through the morning with intentional, quiet attention. He walked slowly through the manor's corridors, noticing the faint traces of footsteps from the past, the lingering scent of books, leather, and polished wood. Each memory was a small note, a whisper of who he had been, who he had become, and who he might yet grow into. Bruce paused at a window, watching sunlight scatter across the gardens outside. The leaves shimmered, the flowers swayed in a gentle breeze, and the world beyond the walls seemed to exhale softly with the morning. In these quiet moments, Bruce reflected on the people who had touched his life. Some were gone lost to time, circumstance, or distance, but their presence remained embedded in the rhythm of his heart. He thought of mentors, friends, and fleeting acquaintances who had shaped his awareness, empathy, and understanding. Softly, he whispered thank you into the morning. Words carried on a quiet breath, a gentle acknowledgement to those who had influenced him without expectation or demand. The process of farewell did not rush. Bruce moved deliberately, touching objects, pausing at photographs, and listening to the faint echoes of laughter and conversation. Each gesture was a way of honoring what had been, releasing the weight of what could not be changed, and embracing the peace that came from conscious reflection. There was beauty in this stillness, a recognition that memory, love, and understanding do not fade but transform into gentle, sustaining currents within us. Alfred observed quietly, the faint smile on his face, reflecting calm approval. Closure, Master Bruce, is a practice, not a destination. It is found in patience, in reflection, and in the quiet acceptance that some chapters close naturally, while others linger gently in memory. Bruce allowed these words to sink in, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease, and the soft unfolding of calm within his mind. Soft goodbyes were not final endings, they were the tender acknowledgement of passage, allowing space for growth and serenity. He found himself in the old study, where dust motes danced lazily in shafts of morning light. Books lined the shelves, each spine a quiet witness to knowledge, reflection, and the layering of experience. Bruce ran his fingers lightly over the covers, noting the stories contained within them: lessons, adventures, insights, and reflections. He felt gratitude for the accumulated wisdom, recognizing that each encounter, each act of learning, had contributed to the quiet heroism he practiced daily. The courtyard beckoned next, bathed in golden light. Bruce stepped outside, letting the warmth touch his face and arms. The garden had changed subtly over time, flowers bloomed and faded, stones shifted slightly, but the essence remained, a space of quiet growth and reflection. Here, he allowed himself to say goodbye to lingering regrets, to small missteps, and to the heavy weight of expectation he had often carried. The act of release was gentle, like setting a feather afloat on a still pond. He reflected on Gotham, the city that had demanded so much, yet offered quiet lessons in return. Soft goodbyes were not limited to people or memories. They included the subtle patterns of life itself, the small frustrations, the fleeting disappointments, the gentle misalignments that inevitably shaped understanding and compassion. Bruce allowed each thought to pass without judgment, acknowledging it, then letting it settle softly into the background of awareness. In the quiet of the afternoon, he returned to the manor's library, sitting by the fire where light shimmered softly across the polished wood. Alfred joined him, offering tea and a companionable silence. Words were not necessary here. Presence alone conveyed acknowledgement, comfort, and support. Bruce felt the profound peace of shared stillness, the quiet intimacy of companionship, and the gentle assurance that farewells need not be lonely or heavy, they could be warm, reflective, and softly sustaining. He thought of the lessons he had absorbed over the years: patience, empathy, subtle courage, and attentive observation. Soft goodbyes were a continuation of these lessons, a recognition that life's passages are gentle teachers. Letting go did not mean forgetting, nor did it diminish the significance of the past. Instead, it created space for serenity, reflection, and renewed attention to the present. The rain began to fall softly outside, adding a delicate rhythm to the quiet room. Bruce listened to the patter of droplets against the windows, each one a small echo of the world beyond, carrying reminders of impermanence, change, and the subtle beauty of transition. He allowed the sound to synchronize with his breath, inhaling deeply, exhaling fully, and feeling a soft release in both body and mind. Alfred's voice broke the silence once more. Gentle and steady, Master Bruce, farewells need not be loud. They are most profound when quiet, reflective, and offered with presence. In this way, peace becomes part of your daily practice, as natural as breathing, as enduring as memory. Bruce felt the truth settle deeply within him, a quiet confirmation that the soft goodbyes of the day would ripple outward in subtle ways, shaping understanding, awareness, and calm. He rose from the chair, moving slowly toward the windows that looked out across the city. Gotham lay beneath him, alive in quiet, unhurried motion. The streets, rooftops, and alleys carried countless small acts, gestures of kindness, observation, empathy, and courage that had gone unnoticed, yet contributed to the rhythm of life. Bruce allowed himself a final moment of reflection, whispering gratitude for the lessons, the experiences, and the quiet guidance that had shaped him. As evening approached, Bruce walked to the rooftop, letting the wind wrap gently around him. He gazed at the fading light, the soft glow of lanterns, and the first stars appearing in the sky above. Soft goodbyes were no longer just farewells. They were acknowledgments of continuity, love, and the enduring patterns of life. By releasing old weight gently, he created space for wonder, reflection, and the gentle unfolding of the days to come. Finally, Bruce returned to his room, laying down with the calm awareness that soft goodbyes had been offered, received, and internalized. He closed his eyes, letting gratitude, reflection, and serenity fill him completely. The city breathed quietly outside, carrying unseen acts of care, attention, and gentle courage. And Bruce, thoughtful, reflective, and ready to continue his journey, drifted toward sleep with the peaceful knowledge that letting go can be both soft and sustaining. The morning light fell softly across Wayne Manor, spilling through tall windows and brushing the furniture with a warmth that seemed almost tender. Bruce stood at the edge of the library, looking out across the gardens, noticing how the leaves shimmered with dew and how the sunlight caught the edges of the old stone pathways. It was a quiet day, not marked by urgency or grand gestures, only the gentle unfolding of awareness and reflection, the kind of day where a hero's presence might go unnoticed, yet still ripple across the world in small, enduring ways. Before we begin, take a slow, deep breath with Bruce. Feel the calm settle into your body, the quiet pulse of your heartbeat, and imagine the soft warmth of sunlight brushing your skin. This chapter is a meditation on quiet heroism, on realizing that gentle acts of care and attention can create profound ripples in the lives of others, and on understanding that heroism does not always demand recognition. Bruce's mind drifted to the countless small interventions he had made over the years. None of them had been celebrated, none had been recorded in history, yet each had mattered. A child guided safely through a dark alley, a stranger comforted with a quiet word. A careful observation that prevented harm. All of these small acts created a tapestry of quiet goodness across the city. He understood now that the essence of heroism was not in spectacle or recognition, but in attentiveness, empathy, and the courage to act subtly yet deliberately. Alfred entered quietly, carrying a tray with tea and a small plate of biscuits. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "a gentle hero does not seek applause. The world is often unaware of their deeds, but the effect of such acts is profound, rippling outward in ways that are rarely seen. You have cultivated this quietly over the years, and it is a gift to those around you." Bruce nodded, feeling the weight and truth of Alfred's words. Heroism, he realized, was measured not by outward accolades, but by the quiet integrity of consistent, caring action. He stepped to the window, watching a small child in the garden below, playing with a puppy. The scene was ordinary, yet deeply moving in its simplicity. Bruce smiled softly, recognizing that the small joys, attentions, and protections he provided allowed these moments to exist, uninterrupted and safe. A hero's work, he realized, was often invisible, carried out in ways that preserved peace, nurtured kindness, and allowed life to flourish quietly. Bruce thought of Gotham itself, the city that had challenged him, shaped him, and taught him the value of subtle attentiveness. The streets, rooftops, and alleys were full of unseen acts, a neighbor delivering bread to someone in need, a quiet hand offered to steady a passerby, a gesture of understanding to someone lost or frightened. These invisible threads, he understood, were the true markers of a gentle hero's impact, weaving a pattern of connection and care that sustained the city's quiet heart. He allowed his thoughts to return inward, reflecting on his own growth, from childhood curiosity to adult reflection. Every experience had contributed to a deeper understanding of empathy, patience, and subtle courage. Bruce had learned to notice, to respond, and to offer care without expectation. The quiet hero's journey was not a path of recognition, but a continuous practice of observation, understanding, and gentle action. The sunlight shifted, illuminating the corners of the library with golden warmth. Bruce moved through the space deliberately, touching the spines of books that had guided him, noting the small signs of time etched into furniture and walls. Each object carried echoes of the past, the memories of lessons learned, guidance received, and quiet acts of kindness. He realized that heroism was embedded in these patterns, in the quiet constancy of presence, care, and attentiveness. Alfred's presence was steady, a reminder that guidance often comes not with demands, but with calm support. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "sometimes the most profound acts of heroism are those that require nothing but patience, attentiveness, and consistent care. They shape the world quietly, yet irrevocably." Bruce felt the resonance of these words, letting them deepen the understanding that had been forming over years of observation and reflection. The gentle hero does not seek reward. The reward lies in the quiet, positive transformation of the world around them. He stepped into the garden, feeling the soft grass beneath his feet and the warmth of the sun on his shoulders. Each step was deliberate, mindful, and reflective a continuation of his ongoing practice of observation and care. Bruce considered the people of Gotham, each living their own quiet lives, shaped subtly by gestures that may never be acknowledged. The gentle hero moves among them, unseen and steady, providing the foundation for security, peace, and trust. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, and Bruce allowed his attention to drift to the rhythm of life around him. Birds called softly, a distant bell tolled, and the faint murmur of the city beyond the walls reminded him of the interconnectedness of all things. Each moment held potential for care, attentiveness, and quiet courage. Bruce recognized that these small interventions, though often invisible, created a network of safety and trust that nurtured life's delicate balance. He thought again of the lessons from Alfred, and the quiet guidance that had shaped his understanding. Each story, each suggestion, each gentle correction had contributed to the cultivation of subtle heroism. Bruce understood now that heroism is as much about restraint as action, as much about listening and observing as intervening. The gentle hero sees what others do not, responds to what is unseen, and nurtures the world with quiet, deliberate care. The day unfolded slowly, each moment carrying soft lessons in awareness and empathy. Bruce spent time tending the garden, observing the city from distant windows, and reflecting on the invisible threads connecting lives across Gotham. Every small gesture, every act of attention, was a continuation of his journey, a reaffirmation that the quiet hero's impact is profound, precisely because it is often unnoticed. As evening approached, Bruce returned to the rooftop, gazing at the first stars appearing in the sky above. The city below was calm, streets dotted with lights, rooftops carrying shadows, and the faint hum of life moving through unseen alleys and homes. He felt a quiet awe at the subtle patterns of human connection, the invisible gestures of care, and the cumulative effect of consistent, gentle heroism. The city itself seemed to breathe in rhythm with his awareness. Bruce allowed himself a moment of deep reflection, breathing slowly, feeling the cool night air, and observing the world in patient silence. He realized that heroism is not measured in dramatic victories, but in quiet attentiveness, patient care, and the gentle, persistent nurturing of others' lives. The ripple of small acts noticed or unnoticed carries weight. And in this, the gentle hero's legacy unfolds quietly, steadily, and beautifully. Finally, as night fully settled over Gotham, Bruce descended from the rooftop and returned to the manor, carrying with him a profound sense of calm and purpose. The city continued its quiet rhythm, shaped in small ways by unseen hands, subtle courage, and gentle presence. Bruce, thoughtful, reflective, and quietly vigilant, understood that heroism is not about spectacle or acclaim, but about consistent care, attentiveness, and the courage to act with empathy in subtle ways. That night, as Bruce lay in bed, he felt the quiet satisfaction of a day lived as a gentle hero. The warmth of the room, the memory of past guidance, and the rhythm of the city outside combined into a soft, sustaining peace. Somewhere in Gotham, unseen yet profoundly felt, the quiet interventions of the day rippled outward, and Bruce, aware, attentive, and reflective, drifted toward sleep with the knowledge that gentle heroism endures quietly, invisibly, and beautifully, shaping the world in ways both subtle and profound. The afternoon sky over Gotham stretched wide and soft, clouds drifting lazily across its pale canvas. Bruce stood at the edge of the manor's terrace, leaning lightly against the stone railing, watching the shapes form and dissolve above him. The clouds moved slowly, each a gentle reminder of time passing, of moments that come and go, and of the lives that leave imprints in subtle, enduring ways. It was a quiet meditation on memory, presence, and the tender acknowledgement of what had been, and what continues to exist quietly in our hearts. Before we begin, take a slow, reflective breath with Bruce. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the calm pulse in your body, and imagine the soft drift of clouds above, carrying thoughts, memories, and quiet reflections. This chapter is about remembering, honoring, and accepting the fleeting beauty of life, the lessons of those we have loved, and the quiet continuity of experience. Bruce closed his eyes briefly, recalling the faces of those who had shaped him, parents whose love had been steady and profound, friends whose loyalty had been gentle yet unwavering, and mentors whose guidance had illuminated quiet paths through complex moments. Each memory surfaced, not with sharp pain, but with a warm resonance, like sunlight spilling across familiar surfaces, illuminating fragments of the past that were now soft, comforting threads woven into the fabric of his life. Alfred approached silently, carrying a small tray with tea. His presence was steady, reassuring, as always. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "memories are like clouds. They drift, they shift, and they leave traces of light behind. We carry them not as burdens, but as gentle reminders of what we have learned, and whom we have loved." Bruce nodded, feeling the truth of the metaphor settle within him. Clouds were transient, yet beautiful. Memories were fleeting, yet enduring in their quiet impact. He watched a cloud slowly take the shape of a soaring bird, then drift apart, reforming into something new. Bruce thought of the people he had lost, the fleeting yet significant moments spent together, the lessons imparted, and the subtle imprints left on his heart. There was Alfred, whose quiet wisdom had been encompassed for years. Selina, whose complexity had taught him patience and subtle understanding, and others whose presence, though ephemeral, had shaped the depth of his empathy. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of distant rain and blooming flowers from the manor's garden. Bruce inhaled deeply, allowing the aroma to anchor him to the present while honoring the past. Each memory was a cloud in its own way, shifting, soft, and luminous in its own right. He let himself drift gently through recollections, smiling softly at the echoes of laughter, the quiet gestures of care, and the unspoken understanding that had passed between him and those he cherished. He thought of the city below, where lives continued to unfold in quiet, unnoticed ways. Just as clouds drifted over Gotham, memories and influences of people moved through the city, some visible, others subtle, yet all contributing to the tapestry of existence. Bruce recognized that the beauty of memory lay not in permanence, but in presence. Each recollection a momentary illumination, a soft acknowledgement that shapes perception, understanding, and empathy. Bruce allowed himself to revisit moments of connection, a shared laugh with Alfred in the library, Selina's quiet gaze that conveyed understanding without words, a small act of kindness to someone in need that had gone unnoticed. Each memory carried a soft lesson in patience, empathy, and gentle courage. He realized that these threads, though fleeting, had lasting effects, and that the act of remembrance itself was a quiet form of honoring and sustaining those connections. The clouds above shifted again, taking on shapes that suggested gentle waves, floating endlessly across the pale blue sky. Bruce thought of life in a similar way, flowing, shifting, and ever-changing, yet imbued with subtle patterns, meaning, and beauty. Each moment, each relationship, each act of care or understanding contributed to a broader, quiet narrative. Just as the clouds left traces of light in the sky, the people he had loved left traces in his heart, shaping his quiet heroism and emotional depth. He moved to the edge of the terrace and leaned slightly forward, feeling the breeze brush his face. The city below seemed to pause in harmony with his reflection, a quiet rhythm of life that carried both presence and impermanence. Bruce understood that memory and loss were not sources of sorrow alone. They were invitations to recognize the beauty of what had existed, to honor it without clinging, and to allow space for new experiences to emerge. Alfred joined him on the terrace, settling into a quiet stance beside him. "Master Bruce, it is not necessary to grasp everything or to hold tightly," he said softly. "Clouds pass, moments fade, yet the impressions they leave endure. In this way, we carry all that matters within us, as soft light in the corners of our hearts." Bruce nodded, letting the words mingle with the sensation of wind and sunlight, creating a sense of calm, acceptance, and quiet continuity. He thought again of those he had lost, and how their lessons had guided him through nights of reflection and days of quiet heroism. Their presence, though no longer tangible, remained in subtle ways, shaping attentiveness, fostering empathy, and reminding him of the importance of gentle acts that ripple through the lives of others. Each memory, like a drifting cloud, carried a small, sustaining light, illuminating choices, reflections, and the quiet courage to act with care. Bruce closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the sun and the gentle movement of air carry him into a meditative state. He reflected on his own growth, the lessons learned from those who had come and gone, and the soft, enduring resonance of love, care, and connection. The clouds above, drifting endlessly, reminded him that life's beauty lies not in permanence, but in presence, awareness, and the ability to perceive subtle patterns that sustain and enrich. He imagined each memory as a cloud, carrying a fragment of experience, a lesson, or a connection. Some were shaped by joy, others by quiet challenges, but all contributed to the soft architecture of understanding that defined his emotional landscape. Bruce felt a gentle gratitude for the impermanence of these moments, recognizing that their fleeting nature enhanced their significance. Like light breaking briefly through a shifting sky, the afternoon faded into evening, the clouds tinged with the soft blush of sunset. Bruce lingered on the terrace, watching the hues shift from pale gold to gentle rose, then to soft indigo as the first stars appeared. He understood that reflection, memory, and acknowledgement of loss were not final acts. They were part of an ongoing rhythm, a quiet dialogue with the past that enriched the present and prepared the heart for the future. Alfred's presence beside him remained steady, a comforting reminder that guidance and care often persist quietly, even in absence. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "the memories we carry are our inheritance. They shape us, sustain us, and remind us that even as clouds shift and fade, the light they cast endures." Bruce absorbed the words, feeling the resonance of continuity and calm, the awareness that memory is both a gift and a guide, quietly shaping reflection, empathy, and quiet courage. As night fully settled, Bruce descended from the terrace and moved through the quiet manor, carrying the lessons of reflection with him. The echoes of clouds and memories mingled with the subtle rhythms of the city outside, creating a sense of connection, serenity, and continuity. He felt the profound beauty of impermanence, the enduring impact of relationships, and the quiet satisfaction of acknowledging life's fleeting yet luminous moments. Finally, as Bruce lay in bed that evening, he let the drifting clouds above Gotham merge with the shifting clouds of memory within him. He allowed the soft presence of those he had loved, lost, and learned from to wash over him, gentle and sustaining. The city continued its quiet rhythm outside, and he drifted toward sleep, carried by the awareness that clouds, memories, and quiet acts of love and attention endure, ripple, and illuminate even the most ordinary moments. The night sky stretched endlessly above Gotham, a canvas of deep indigo sprinkled with distant stars, faintly shimmering like soft embers in the dark. Bruce stood atop a quiet rooftop, the cool wind brushing against his face, and allowed the city's subtle rhythms to wash over him. The streets below were dimly lit, quiet now, carrying only the gentle hum of life, continuing in ways unseen yet profoundly felt. This was a night for reflection, for noticing, and for a calm exhale that held both the weight and beauty of everything that had come before. Before we begin, take a deep, grounding breath with Bruce. Feel the calm settle into your body, the slow rhythm of your heartbeat, and imagine the soft presence of stars above, the quiet city below, and the gentle expansiveness of time stretching behind and ahead. This chapter is a meditation on legacy, presence, and the gentle awareness that life's quiet acts of love, care, and attentiveness ripple outward far beyond what can ever be seen. Bruce lifted his gaze to the sky, tracing constellations with a slow, reflective breath. Each star seemed to hold a story, an echo of moments past, a faint resonance of the people he had loved, learned from, and lost. He let himself linger in the soft glow of memory and wonder, feeling the quiet awe of existence, the interplay of light and shadow, presence and absence, small gestures and enduring effects. Even the faintest star carried significance, a reminder that quiet acts could illuminate in ways unseen. Alfred's voice, calm and steady, drifted into his memory, as if carried by the breeze. "Master Bruce, the stars above are witnesses, not judges. They shine quietly, persistently, offering light without demand, much like the subtle acts of kindness and courage we perform in life. Notice them, learn from them, and know that your quiet presence shapes the world in ways both profound and unseen." Bruce inhaled slowly, letting the words settle deep within, merging with the rhythm of the wind and the soft pulse of the city. He turned his gaze downward, observing the rooftops, the lamplights, the faint silhouettes of pedestrians moving through alleys and quiet streets. Gotham itself was alive in subtle ways, the unseen kindnesses, the soft laughter, the gestures of empathy that rarely left a mark on memory, but sustained life's rhythm nonetheless. Bruce realized that his own quiet interventions, his attentiveness, and his gentle courage were threads woven into this intricate tapestry, a legacy of care extending outward in ways impossible to measure, but profoundly felt. The wind shifted again, carrying faint scents of rain from earlier in the day, the aroma of distant flowers, and the subtle warmth of the city's quiet heartbeat. Bruce closed his eyes for a moment, allowing these sensations to ground him. He thought of every small gesture, every act of empathy, every quiet presence he had offered throughout his life, moments that had gone unnoticed, yet shaped the lives of others and the contours of his own understanding. Heroism, he realized, did not require recognition. It required attentiveness, patience, and the courage to remain gentle in a world often loud with chaos. He reached out with both hands, stretching toward the stars, feeling as if he could connect to each shimmering point of light above, each holding a memory, a lesson, or a quiet truth. His stretch was slow, deliberate, almost meditative, symbolizing the soft, ongoing effort of reflection and presence. The sky seemed to respond, vast and accepting, a mirror for the quiet courage that had guided him through years of observation, understanding, and subtle intervention. Bruce thought of Gotham's people, the countless lives intersecting with his own, many unseen, many unknown. He imagined the ripple effect of every small act of care he had offered, the hand steadied, the comfort given, the attention paid to an unspoken need. Each gesture was like a star in its own right, small, bright, distant, yet illuminating someone's life, holding significance far beyond immediate perception. The quiet hero, he understood, leaves traces of light that persist in invisible ways, shaping the world with care, consistency, and empathy. Alfred appeared at his side, quietly standing and observing the city alongside him. "Master Bruce," he said softly, "the legacy we leave is often found in the lives we touch without expectation, in the patience we cultivate, and in the kindness we scatter quietly. You have been that gentle hero, and your influence will stretch further than you may ever know." Bruce allowed the words to settle, feeling the profound simplicity of truth in them. Heroism was the calm practice of consistent, intentional care, the stretching of one's presence into the lives of others with quiet mindfulness. The night deepened, and the stars above seemed to grow brighter, the darkness surrounding them only emphasizing their presence. Bruce sat down slowly, the stone beneath him firm and grounding, and let himself reflect on the journey that had brought him here. From childhood curiosity and quiet empathy to the deliberate cultivation of attentiveness, patience, and subtle courage, he had grown steadily, quietly, yet profoundly. Every small act had been a seed, every observation a lesson, every bond a soft tether to the world around him. He closed his eyes, listening to the faint hum of the city below, the distant footsteps, the rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of life continuing. These sounds, subtle yet persistent, reminded him of the quiet constancy of presence and the enduring impact of care. Bruce allowed himself to imagine each life he had touched as a small ripple, expanding outward, merging with countless others to create an intricate network of influence, trust, and understanding. The clouds above drifted lazily across the sky, illuminated by the faint glow of the moon, soft and forgiving. Bruce opened his eyes and watched as they slowly passed, reshaping the patterns of the heavens yet leaving the light of the stars intact. He understood now that life was much the same. Moments, memories, and connections may shift and fade, yet the influence of genuine care endures, like light reflected softly across a vast, ever-changing sky. A gentle breeze brushed across his face, carrying with it the subtle reassurance that presence and observation mattered as much as action, and that every small act of empathy, courage, and attention rippled outward into the lives of others. Bruce extended both hands once more, stretching toward the stars with a calm awareness, a gentle acknowledgement that his journey was ongoing, yet already meaningful in its quiet, enduring impact. He thought of all those who had touched his life, friends, loved ones, and strangers alike, then sent a quiet, heartfelt gratitude into the night. Each connection, no matter how brief or subtle, had contributed to the gentle hero he had become, to the quiet understanding he carried, and to the calm assurance that even unseen efforts leave lasting traces. The city breathed beneath him, carrying countless small acts of care and subtle heroism, echoing the patterns he had cultivated throughout his life. Bruce finally leaned back, stretching fully, feeling the wind embrace him, the stars above guiding his gaze, and the city below continuing its quiet rhythm. A soft exhale left him, a release of tension, a surrender to presence, and a gentle acknowledgement of the journey's unfolding. Life's subtle beauty, the quiet persistence of love and empathy, and the enduring effect of small, consistent acts of care were all here, surrounding him, filling him with calm, and guiding him toward rest. Somewhere in Gotham, he realized, the echoes of his quiet heroism would continue. Unnoticed yet enduring, subtle yet profound. He allowed himself a final, slow, reflective stretch toward the stars, feeling the connection between past, present, and the unseen ripples that would flow forward into the world. His heart was calm, his awareness settled, and his mind ready to drift gently into sleep, carrying the warmth of understanding, gratitude, and quiet fulfillment. And with that, he stretched into the stars. The city continued to breathe below, the wind whispered softly through the rooftops, and the universe carried the subtle light of countless quiet acts. Bruce closed his eyes fully, letting the calm of the night envelop him completely, feeling the gentle pulse of existence and the enduring presence of everything he had touched. Thanks for spending this time with us. Sleep well. Everything's going to be okay, man.